So I will call the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting of May 6th to order at 5:05. And welcome everyone. We have the agenda in front of us. Any additions or deletions?
I have none, your worship, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to perhaps suggest, and CAO Miller, please tell me, that the CAO report be tabled till next week, because we just got it. So should that go in the agenda part, or how would that best be recorded? You could delete it from this time, but that's different than tabling it, so whichever you prefer.
Oh, so sorry, you don't want me to walk through it then today?
Okay. Because we haven't had time.
We can, sure, just, I'll delete it from this agenda then.
Okay, so we're going to be deleting report number 1. So reports are 9 and 9.1 is going to be deleted and will happen next meeting. So any further changes? No? Would someone care to move the agenda as amended? Councillor Good so moves. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have the minutes of April 2nd, Governance and Priorities meeting. You've had a chance to review those. Are there any edits to those minutes? If not, would someone be prepared to put forth a motion? What does that matter? Deputy Mayor?
I move that the council adopt the minutes of April 2nd, 2024 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting as presented.
Great, thank you. All those in favor of that motion? It is carried. Next up, we have comments from the public. Maybe we don't have any comments from the public at this point in time?
We don't have any comments.
No comments, okay. Presentations, we do not have any. Review of bylaws and policies. So first up is Council Code of Conduct Bylaw Refresh with Mrs. Miller.
Thank you, your worship. So at the April GMP meeting in my absence, I believe the code of conduct bylaw was on the agenda for review and discussion. So before you for full discussion is a revised draft bylaw that we have presented for consideration. It is pretty much a full rewrite. It has had legal review and it has had other municipal best practices incorporated into it. And if you would walk through it for us, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for bringing this forward. So councillors, we had a heads up and gave some thoughts to things we'd like to have refreshed within this one. So we could, I don't know how's best to go through this. I'll just start then. Okay. Anything on the whereas parts? And I'm going to go fairly quickly, so I hope you reviewed this. Definitions. Definitions, I find the word complainant hard to get my head around because that's the person who's complaining, right? Okay, so I just have to remember that throughout. Councillors, any questions on the definitions? Did you come across anything that should be added to the definition list? Okay, then we've got sections 4.1 interpretation, 5.1. This refers to when we first have our organizational meeting and we are to agree that we will comply with this code of conduct. Okay, how about 6.2? Tells us how we're supposed to represent our town as a whole, basically. 6.3, communicating on behalf of the town. Anything there that is not clear or you would like to say, well, what about this? It would be a good opportunity because I know in the past we have had discussions about speaking on behalf of the town and so on, but does this make it clear as to what the expectation is?
this will be fleshed out in the social media part of it too, I suppose.
Social media is next. So if you look at that, now would be the time to say agree, disagree, or change this sort of thing. Okay, so if we're okay with communications on behalf of the town, then what about the social media part? And this is where I think it does specify that once an official position of the council has been determined, councillors, the mayor, must refrain from posting personal opinions that contradict the official position. And then following through, you can use social media with a personal account or an account dedicated to the role on a council. Should not attempt to disguise or mislead as to their identity or status as an elected representative of the town when using social media. When using social media, shall abide by any town policies in place with respect to the behavior, content, and confidentiality. Councillor Good, you have a question?
Well, section 3 talks about communicating on behalf of the town, and 6.4 is the use of social media. 6.3D says that councillors may publicly express their personal opinions. So there's no problem with the councillor expressing their disagreement with a position of council in this, as long as it's done clearly stated to reflects personal opinion, done respectfully, etc., so forth and so on, which I think is fine. So social media then would not have any restriction against putting a disagreeing point of view. It would have it would be a problem if it was done disrespectfully, etc., 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 but not the disagreement, as long as it's stated it's a personal point of view, because you don't give up your personal points of view because you're a counselor. You still have a right to agree, disagree, hopefully respectfully, well done and all that kind of stuff, and well argued. And that's one of the reasons you have a council, is so that you have different points of view. Once the decision is made, people have different preferences on how they go forward from there. I think that this does clarify that you can still have the disagreement of opinion, but it must be kept respectful. And you don't go after other councils individually, because you're really not arguing against them. It's a disagreement with the idea or the item at hand. That's the way I read this.
So is there a conflict with 6.4A?
I'm sorry?
It does say, okay, so once the decision has been made here,
6 point which?
6.4A.
Yeah.
At the end, it does say, and once an official position of council has been determined, must refrain from posting personal opinions that contradict the official position of council. So are we to assume that in 6.3, that's like anytime before it comes to the vote here, you can express, but after the vote here, it is council has decided, and that's that.
It's a little unclear.
It isn't,
Councillor, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
It is unclear, because there was one other place in here, I can't find it now, and I didn't tag it, where it said, the councillor would still be able to say their disagreement of a already made past motion or whatever, even after, as long as it was done respectfully. So Don, you caught what I caught. There's a couple different contradicting areas here that we should maybe clarify.
Well, let's clarify, because I personally don't have a problem with saying after the decision is made that you don't contradict it. I don't have a problem with that, after the decision is made. But what I do want to ensure is that there's time for, if people think there's going to be an area where there's a disagreement, and hopefully there are some, or else we might have only have one person here, that there would be time for council discussion. There would be time in between the council meetings to express your opinion. For example, let's say we decide we're going to paint a building blue. Let's use that as the example. And we decide first council meeting with a motion to paint the thing blue. Well, that's the time to have your open discussion. That's the time to say, I don't want to make a decision right now. We'll table it until next week while we make a decision. During that week, you can say what you want on it. You can put your opinions out there, talk to your constituents, do whatever you need to do. Once it comes back to council and a decision is made, at that point, you don't go out and be contradictory about it. You've had your chance to speak your piece. You've had your chance to talk to the public about it. You've had your chance to use your social media to whatever extent you feel appropriate to get your feedback, because sometimes you use social media to get feedback on an idea. And then once the decision is made, I think that's it. At that point, I kind of agree with this. Once an official position of council has been determined, but that also puts a responsibility from us not to make a decision in council until we've had a chance to really think it through.
Deputy
So I
Mayor?
can sort of see an area there for discussion. And maybe we should have that discussion now.
Yes.
Rather than after.
Well, this is deliberating on this policy as written, so Deputy Mayor?
So, six, on C, thereafter communicate the decision of council, even if they disagree with council's decision, such that respect for the decision-making process of council is fostered. A councillor may respectfully state that the councillor did not vote with the majority of council on that issue. So is that again after the decision is made, or like, it just seems,
Where is that, sort of?
that is, point, 6.6C. Where it says they may still state that, not what, like it should be one or the other.
Yeah, I think I don't have a problem with that.
So the only like offending line is just the latter half of 6.4A. That kind of seems to be what's throwing the wrench in it. Oh. Everything else seems to kind of be in harmony except the latter half of 6.4A. Sorry, I don't get to tell you to talk.
I kind of would agree with what Councillor Scammahorn has said, because 6.4A is the only one which refrains from posting personal opinions that contradict the official position or vote or something. But what do you others think? Ms. Parsons?
So,
You need your mic.
so, I just find my spot here. So base 6.3D as saying that you're able to publicly express your opinions in a manner that maintains respect for council, other councilors, administration, and any majority decision made by council, right? So that kind of coincides now with 6.4A, saying that you are entitled to express your personal opinions on social media, including disagreement, et cetera, except for once an official position of council has been determined. So that goes back to that 6.3D, where you're respecting a majority decision of council. So once a majority decision of council has been met, you're not debating anymore, you're not posting your public opinions. Your opinion now as a town councillor, whether you agree or disagree, is this is the position of council. Now, because we live stream our meetings and everything is recorded, it is very easy to see when someone voted for or against something. So that's where that 6.6C comes in. It's just that, sure, this is the official position of council. I did vote against it.
Yeah.
Oh, that,
So,
it is calling to clarify that.
yeah, absolutely. Is that helpful?
Then I can sort of see it, I can see a fair answer. The part in 6.4 that says that once the official must refrain from posting personal opinions that contradict, I can sort of see that being left there once if it's done after the motion has been made. You had your chance to speak your piece. And now is not the time to go railing out about what the other guys did, because if that's really what you're doing to an extent. And I mean, disagreeing with the decision, that's fair. You just say, I didn't support the decision. Fine.
So you can say I didn't support, but it's not a time to continue the debate.
Or I voted against it. Debate's over. Council made a decision.
So I just would hate for someone to come back and misinterpret that. I feel like look, I'm not gonna say I can word it better right now, because that's a big task for me. It's late, but I can see how someone would misinterpret the intention of just like, you can say you disagree, but leave your arguments alone, that's open.
There's a, I'm gonna speak to something that years ago affected me very much in decisions of the majority, was that, and I've tried to behave this way on council, is that once a decision has been made, let's say I think we should go left and everybody on council thinks we should go right. Once council votes to go right, my job changes, in my view. My job is to make that decision work as best as it can. Not to try and fight it, to make it work as well as it can, for a couple of reasons. The majority voted the other way, they may well be correct. And that's an important thing, show unity and try and get it done and try and get the work done. The second part of it is, if I go railing against the decision, I make it much more difficult for people to turn around or to change their mind, because it can be seen as losing face or losing trust or losing a whole bunch of other things that are not necessary to have. And if I don't want to become a detriment to other people keeping their minds open to an alternative or to changing their minds if they see fit to do so. And arguing against them publicly and going after them makes it very difficult for people to turn around. We've seen that polarization and the effect it has on open communication. I don't think we want to be, I'll speak for myself, I don't want to be part of that kind of thought process or activity process. It makes it difficult for somebody else to change their mind in light of new information, or seeing the results of the decision and going and weighing it after and saying, was that a good decision? Did we make the right choice? I can look back on council over the years and say there are decisions that, knowing what I know now, I probably would have voted differently in the past, and I would hope we all do that. Anyways, that's just my own way of looking at it, and I think it's not a bad way to look at it. I don't know how to enshrine that, but.
So, okay,
in there, but-
so here's an example. Council votes that the room should be painted black. The mayor votes against that. And then the mayor goes out in public and said the council made the silliest decision ever. I voted against it, but it is council's will that the room be painted black. I would be disobeying this, would I not?
As soon as you said silly or say wacko,
Okay. But if I just said, council had a vote, the room is to be painted black, I disagreed with that, but it's council's vote that carries, it was approved that the room be painted black. Stop there, okay?
back,
Yeah.
put your hand up.
Okay, and I carry on and say the reasons I believe that the room should be painted pink was because I love pink and blah, 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 blah. Should I have stopped before I gave my reasons?
No. I don't think so.
So I voted against the motion, and that was my reasons for voting. And so I'm going on about that, my reasoning.
Well, 6.4A specifically says, once the decision is made, you refrain from posting personal opinions that contradict, and posting is one word. Because it's in the social media part, but it's, to me, it's kind of. The fact that I don't go on social media, I can go on the radio, it's not social media, I can go on TV, it's not social media. I can go out there and rail against it, I can stand on the street corner and rail against it, because social media. Limits social media, huh? Oh, sorry, I'm just saying that if, I think that once the decision is made, you shouldn't go around expressing why you disagree with it. Because you've made the decision,
Okay,
the decision has been made.
okay. Does anybody else have a little quirky question they'd like to ask about this section? Because we need to clarify and everybody has in their minds what the intent is and how we would use this.
You're gonna make me wait till the end?
No, you don't get to talk yet, Ted.
Actually, you missed that part of the meeting. It's at the beginning of this one, not the end.
We switch things around on GMPs. But anyways, Councillor Carr, are you clear on what this would? say that I should or not should do or say
I
about the
don't
room?
see any. I don't see any issue with, explaining to somebody, whether it be on social media or face to face or on the radio or however. Once you have expressed, council decided this. Just if you did not agree with it, you should be able to, because people are gonna ask you. So why should you not be able to substantiate why you voted that way? It's okay not to win every vote, to not vote, but people should understand why, and you should be able to express that. As long as you express first that council
your-
decided this way.
And it's you would then be saying it's your personal opinion
Well,
though, that blah, blah, blah.
Yes, but that's what you're doing by expressing why you did not vote for it.
It's kind of a funny spot where we're trying to catch the spirit of what we want, but hard to put it in the letter of what we want. The spirit of what we want is you're not to go continue the debate. And I think what you're saying is, I'm not intending to continue the debate. And it's just the point, the point saying, well, look, I thought pink because of this, council voted black. This is why I thought pink, and leave it. It's just hard to, it's kind of like, is it sort of like, it when you see it?
Well, I think that's, if I may, I think that's the part of here that talks about respectfully, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't go railing against that, like, the example, they made a stupid decision, et cetera, so forth and so on, they is now pointing out other people, it's now going, if you say they made a stupid decision, it's now personal. You've now made it personal. If you say that my reason for this was this, council decided otherwise, that's not going after anybody personally, that's just saying that was a decision that was made. I think there's a part of respectful behavior that we're supposed to be, one of the things that was in our previous code of conduct was that we're supposed to act better or to try to be better than in behavior and how we deport ourselves. And we're supposed to hold ourselves to a really high standard of discourse and communication.
I think that's in here
That's
someplace.
what we're
Yeah.
spoken to, yeah.
Okay, so are we okay with this section then? We've got the idea because this is the
Are we
time.
taking out that must refrain from in 6.4?
I didn't think that was, did somebody say we should take that out?
That last line, is
6A.
that's sort of the one that we've been.
So after the decision is made, it says must refrain from posting personal opinions that contradict the official position. So isn't that what was contradicting whatever was being said in D?
No, I think A says you're entitled to express a personal opinion.
But
Must do so in a manner that upholds respect for council, other councils, administration, and the public.
What if we added something to the effect of, so like, let's say we have the discussion. At the discussion, I voice my reasons for my opposition or whomever. And that was part of the discussion. Then the decision is made. I think where you've crossed the line is if I go and say, what I've said at council, well, I said this at council, this was, but if I go on and say, here's 10 other reasons that didn't come up at council, why those guys voted the wrong way. Now I'm continuing the debate. If I just restate the discussion, if I just kind of encapsulate the discussion and the reasoning that was at the discussion, that's fine. But if I now continuing the debate would be me saying, well, here's a whole bunch of other stuff, that was, that would be in my mind where you've gone over.
so if you keep the debate going between yourself and whoever your audience is.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Deputy Mayor, what do you think?
I think it's kind of convoluted, but I think, it's still open to interpretation, I guess. I see now though, how the two phrases there do not conflict anymore, but you read it the other way.
Yeah.
I think it's so long though, too long, but it can't be somehow made, shorter, or the whole document is too long, I think, in my opinion, but I'm just trying to save some space here. I don't know if there is a way to do that or not, but
Quick question. Is there any harm in leaving the line in?
no.
Then let's leave it in.
Yeah, leave it in. I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
Okay, Counselor Boychuk, any thoughts on this particular set of clauses?
No, nothing that hasn't already been mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, we've done, 6A, let's say. So 6B, we did, well, I kind of talked that out. 6E, here we go. Public figures and representative of the town, councillors must exercise sound judgment and be prudent in what material they post. Councillors must ensure their comments and posts are factually correct or accurate, etc. Shall direct any requests for service or complaints regarding levels of service through public accessible mechanisms from the town, provided by the town. I said something wrong there. Public accessible mechanisms provided by the town or to the CAO as appropriate. Am I reading something?
I think that's fine, because you could have a pothole reporting thing, and it's nothing wrong with the counselor putting the name in and saying, a friend of mine told me about a pothole at this corner street, put it in there, it's public, it's publicly accessible. Those are public, so there's no problem with us using the same publicly accessible stuff everybody else does. If we're not gonna use that, then we go to the CAO.
I do think though there's some wording thing here. Shall direct any requests for service or complaints regarding levels of service through publicly accessible mechanisms provided by the town or to the CAO as appropriate.
So if someone jumps on the forum and is like, hey, this road is in horrible shape. It is our responsibility to direct them and that complaint through the correct channels. Not,
No.
or say nothing.
Yes.
No, I
Is that
think
what
I'm
I'm-
getting it. Yeah, I'll get clarification, maybe Mrs. Miller.
See it?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, the intention is, so a resident calls Counselor A and says exactly that. There's a pothole in the road, then Counselor A feels that they need to call the CAO to inform the CAO that there's a pothole in the road and ask the CAO to address it. When we should just recommend or suggest the resident and guide them to those mechanisms, because it would get addressed far faster by going through the normal channels than coming to the CAO's desk and sitting there. But there are times and situations when the CAO does need to be made aware, and that phone call does come to the CAO for the CAO to address. So that's the spirit behind that, is to educate our residents. It's faster and quicker, or better service to report directly.
I'm getting it. But,
Okay.
anybody else? We're good? Okay. 6.5, realize all town social media accounts are solely managed by administration. So that means all town phones, emails, et cetera, is my reading of that. Respecting the decision-making process, so counselors, you've read through this, anything that comes to mind to be discussed? Part D, I thought that was kind of clear here. We can't bind the council or the town either by publicly expressing personal views on behalf of the council and not authorized to do so, or by giving direction to administration agents, contractors, consultants, prospective vendors, or other service providers of the town. So we can't make commitments on behalf of the town if we're not authorized through resolution. Anything else on 6.6? 6.7 or 6.8, 6.9. Confidential information, 6.10. I found 6.10D, counselors shall not release information that is subject to the solicited client privilege unless expressly authorized by counsel in writing or required by law to do so. So,
Which one was that?
6.10D. And by in writing, does that, I would think that means a motion of council that something can be released? Is that what that intends? 6.10D.
What were you asking? Sorry.
When it says in writing, that means if we make a council motion,
Right,
then we're good to go.
yes.
Anything else on 6:10, 6:11? Okay, 6:12, conflict of interest and pecuniary interest. So conflict of interest has been defined, I think, in the definitions. And note that if you have a conflict of interest, you still are required to vote on the matter before council.
Okay, I have a difficulty with that. I know there's a difference between pecuniary interest and conflict of interest. But if you are in a conflict of interest, and remember, the conflict of interest, as far as it's been explained to me, is not, I'm not in a conflict of interest if it affects me the same as everybody else in town. In other words, I can vote for a tax increase or against it. It's not a conflict of interest because it's not affecting me better or worse than anything else. All kinds of stuff fits into that. But if I'm in a conflict of interest and it's not pecuniary, the only way to demonstrate that I'm not doing something is to vote against that motion. That's the only way you can publicly demonstrate that I'm not acting with a conflict of interest.
Depending.
Sorry?
Depending. It could-
Yeah, pretty much, but they have to be words positively, so you kind of got to vote against it if it can be seen as benefiting you in any way, shape, or form. And I know there's a difference, and I have a difficulty with making someone vote on an issue when they have a conflict of interest.
This is an MGA thing, though. This is not
Well,
yeah.
we don't get to play with this one. So
Well,
for
no,
example, okay,
It says that it talks about pecuniary interest, it also talks about conflict of interest. I determine when I'm in a conflict of interest.
but you have to
You
vote.
have to vote.
And it doesn't, I don't,
You are
it says
required
that
to
in
vote.
the
It
MGA.
looks like admin is,
Cannot not vote.
Can you,
shaking their
can you show me a
head
section of the
saying,
MGA that says that?
Why couldn't you abstain?
No,
You can't
you can't
abstain.
abstain as a counselor, so
sorry,
what
Debbie,
section of the MGA says I have to, vote? If you don't mind my asking?
or Ms. Parsons?
I can look it up, but under the MGA, you are required to vote and there's only 3 times that I'm aware of that you're allowed to abstain.
Can we take a look at those before we go forward? Shouldn't be
Well,
that hard
let's
to
keep
find.
going and I'll find them.
You can't abstain at the time. You have to be out of the room. You can't even be there for discussion.
Sorry?
If you.
If it's pecuniary, I have to leave. Yes, I understand that.
Well, conflict of interest by definition means a situation where a counselor's personal or private interests influence or may be reasonably perceived as influencing the council on a matter before council. So we'll come back to this one when admin lets us know what they found in MGA, if that works. Talks about counselors, independent legal advice, pecuniary interest. I had a question, sort of, we go into conflict of interest a bit here, but when it comes to pecuniary interest, we just refer to the act. Is that because it's,
Because it defines pecuniary interest.
so can we define pecuniary interest in here like we do conflict of interest or not?
The
It is
definition.
defined, but it's defined as stated in the act.
Yeah.
So, like, we're kind of no further ahead other than getting to the act.
You have to do your homework.
Well, I know you have to do your homework, but that's part of the deal, no matter what.
Cash in your jeans.
So anyways, that was just a question from me, but others might think differently. While we're going along here, improper use of influence, so 6:18. Any thoughts on that one? So, seems pretty clear, maybe. Use of town assets and services. So we don't get special privileges just because we happen to sit on our chairs here.
I think
Is that good?
I found the requirements to vote.
Oh, you found it? Okay.
What
Yes,
section?
section 183(1). A counselor attending a council meeting must vote on a matter put forth in a public meeting unless the counselor is required or permitted to abstain
And the other-
from voting under this and any other enactment. And that's what I'm wondering about, where I'm being required to vote,
What is permitted to, and how do you get?
because
So
I
perhaps
don't-
this is,
That's what I'm saying, I read the Municipal
Mhm.
Government Act and looked for an area where it says I can't vote if I'm in a conflict of interest. Or I have to vote if I'm in a conflict of interest, and I haven't found that wording very, it should be clear. I mean, I think that's
So
something we
perhaps,
want
um,
specific.
this could be one of the questions that goes to, admin and legal, just to make sure. And if it needs to be changed, we can add wording to that effect. Okay, 622, where town facilities are not open to the public, councilors
On all.
will not, have access. Any questions there? So by that, I'm not supposed to be going to facilities or work sites except as previously approved through resolution of council or the CAO. I can go to the pool, but I can't go to the pool maintenance room, I guess, kind of the thing.
Yeah.
Any comments, questions on that one? Okay, 623. Same topic. 624, electronic communication devices provided by the town. Any concerns there? 625, using property, equipment, etc. of the town. The way in which you use them is not supposed to be offensive or inappropriate, and no financial gain. Okay, 626, I had a little question or a little what sort of thing. Councilors should not use electronic devices provided by the town for their personal business use. Councilors may use town electronic devices for personal use in accordance with the policies. So if I'm getting a town phone, I can email my family, blah, 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 but I can't advertise my personal, I don't know, cat kennel business using the town phone or town email is what I'm getting out of that. Is that correct? Essentially, okay. How about 627, 628, actions during municipal election periods? So I had a question on this one, 629C. Okay, so our elections right now are usually, well, they are in October. So usually 6 weeks or so prior to that, the election period opens, right? So does that mean that, are we still allowed to go to the September 30th, events for Indigenous? We're still allowed to go there, but I shouldn't.
So we shouldn't have a ribbon cutting at the new,
Wastewater treatment plants.
another
Okay.
6-week period.
Okay. I think I'm getting this now. Anybody else questions there on that part of things? 6:30 during municipal elections. So. Someplace in here, it talks about if you have a council site, you have to say this is not your campaign site, go elsewhere. If that's the situation, I think. 631, I had a little bit of a question on this one. A councillor or candidate may accept the services of an administration employee that chooses to volunteer with the election campaign during non-work hours. Is that truly the situation?
So in other words, if somebody wants to come campaign for you.
Yeah. Last election, some were told not to put signs in certain places because it was kind of, well, they were told not to put signs on their property because they were a town employee and they might therefore be perceived as.
I don't believe we have a right to tell somebody, but I could check that as well.
I think there's what you can do and what you should do and what you may not be wise. It's kind of one of those things like, yeah, you have the right to do it.
But it's
Yeah.
good for you to do it.
Think it through.
I mean,
So you guys as having people under you can say, I would not advise this, but I can't tell you not to do it.
And that's been the advice.
don't think we can.
Good.
Stop.
Okay.
Could you put your mic?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chad, we'll just address them through me, please. Anyways, next up then, attendance at orientation and other training. You all realize that you're elected, you're gonna be taking some training and you have to make time to do that. Expenditures, anything there? How about gifts and hospitality? I had a question or two about this initially. So, this version has taken away the, value of the gift, from the, bylaw, which is fine by me, but just realize that sort of thing. Counselors shall donate gifts by the counselor on behalf of the town, which have significant or historical value back to the town for display at the town office. Town office in particular, I guess. We're not to accept gifts or benefits, that,
We might just, by way of whatever, for 6.37, maybe it shouldn't just say town office.
Yeah.
Maybe it should just be like
town facility.
displayed where appropriate,
Oh, yeah. Where was that?
because it just, sorry, I've got Indiana Jones running through my head right now. And,
637.
it might belong in a museum.
Okay, so 638, counselors shall not accept gifts or benefits that would, to a reasonable member of the public, appear to imply favoritism or bias on the part of the counselor. That make sense? I guess you shouldn't accept a gift if somebody might perceive that, well, you're going to influence council decisions in a certain way because you accepted a gift from that.
But covered in our professionalism, though, would it not?
Well, I'm hoping so, yeah. But here we're just stating it clearly, I guess.
What's the definition of a bribe?
So, 639, a gift or benefit provided by the counselors, with the counselor's knowledge to the counselor or counselor's spouse, child, parent, that is connected directly or indirectly to the performance of the counselor's duties is deemed to be a gift to the counselor.
If I may, going back, just because I found the answer.
Are we, okay, you're going back to
Yeah.
which?
614, I think I found the answer here. It's under Bill 20 Municipal Fair Statute Amendment Act, and it's in their one-page sheet that talks about what the changes are. And the change that they're looking for is allow elected
Yeah, use your
officials.
microphone, please.
Oh, pardon me. The change that the government is looking for is allow elected officials to recuse themselves for real or perceived conflicts of interest. It says currently, though I never saw it in the MGA, elected officials can only recuse themselves for matters in which they have a financial interest. Which
Yes.
like I said, I never have found that in the MGA when I've looked, and I still can't find it. So, but that's what they're saying right now. They're trying to change that because of the conflict I'm talking about. So whatever, that's fine. You don't have to look any further.
So as of now,
As of now,
614,
you've got to declare it and then vote.
okay.
Okay,
Okay, so we're okay on the gifts business? 640 speaks to real estate or significant assets. Okay, 641 is, gifts and donations as opposed to gifts and hospitality, which was the previous one. So these are new, I think, to this, version. So a counselor may personally give a gift or donation to a community group, fundraising event, or third party, but must make it clear the donation is being made on their personal behalf and not as a counselor or in affiliation with the town. 642, counselors must use their discretion when providing personal gifts or donations, ensuring that no reasonable member of the public, that to a reasonable member of the public, it would not appear to imply favoritism or bias on the part of the counselor or be in gratitude for influence. Are those clear enough for
I have a question.
Councillor Carr?
I have a bit of an issue with this one, and the reason being is, for example, Shelley and I were buying little flower baskets, for new businesses that were opening in town. I don't see how that would really negatively impact the town or council or anything else. It has a higher impact to the person coming from a counselor than it would from Shelley Shannon and Brad Carr. It has more impact, they appreciate it more, and I know that because I've heard it. I don't see why this needs to be in here. It is not costing the town anything, it is not negatively reflecting on the town, it is not negatively reflecting on council. So why is this in here?
Well,
I think
I can sort of see why.
Counselor Good,
Yeah, I'm gonna speak up, and I can, and I just, first time I've heard about it is now. I can sort of see why. It's, I did it and they didn't. The perception could be, I did it as a counselor, because it means, you stated it means more coming as a counselor. Then if it means more coming as a counselor, it should come from council. If it means more coming from a counselor, then it's, to my mind, how would I put it? And this is my opinion. It's very nice, but subtle campaigning. It's painting yourself as different than others during the term, which fair enough. I mean, that's fine. But understanding that when you make the statement, they really appreciate it more coming from a council than from another person. You're kind of telling us that says the whole thing in a bucket right there.
But anyone is welcome to do it.
Yes, but not as a counselor.
Why not?
You do it as Brad Carr, I do it as Byron Scanlon.
Why not? Why not as a council?
Well, then I should be able to, every time I make a donation to a hockey team or whatever, I should be able to put donated by Counselor Don Good.
Sure, if you want to.
Except there's other things in our code of conduct that talk about, you shouldn't really be identifying yourself as a counselor unless I'm missing something here. And that was done earlier. Am I correct on that? Kayla, you're not supposed to be, you're not speaking for council or as a counselor
Yeah.
when you're doing your day-to-day normal stuff. You can't pick and choose to be a counselor when I give a flower, et cetera. I think that there's a problem there.
or the other one I would throw in, if counselors individually do that kind of thing, how do you know that council as a whole supported that? Because you're going about that business as a counselor, Deputy Mayor.
Well, I think I don't agree that should be in there either. If you're donating something that has to do with your portfolio or in Brad, what Councilor's Carr just talked about, I see that totally appropriate, that him and I, as being on the Economic Development Committee, if we feel as individual councillors that we wanted to support those businesses, it's reflecting the committee. I don't see that being a problem if, you decide to do something as a councillor, and if you want it, no matter what you want to donate to, it's up to you. I just don't see that's a lot of control there that I don't think has to be there. I don't.
Pardon me.
Counselor Good?
Except you mentioned, because we're on the Economic Development Committee, you included that in your statement. So if I give a gift to, I don't know, name the thing, because I'm on some committee and I give a gift to somebody and I don't say it's from council, I'm saying it's from me personally, et cetera. Unless you're gonna say when you give the gift, this is on behalf of council, in which case fine and dandy, but then you can't kind of have it both ways. And you expressed the fact that it's because you're on the Economic Development Committee. I didn't put those words there.
I'm just saying of the Economic Development Committee as a example. I'm not saying that written in stone. I'm using that as an example. I still don't think there should be a problem with a town councillor being able to support something as a town councillor as opposed to council. You could do it both ways. There is no harm in doing that. I don't see the harm in us being able to do that. I really don't. There is no damage being done.
We have to watch perceptions sometimes. CAO Miller?
I just wanted to comment on that it could be seen as like everything directs the mayor to be the spokesperson of the community and the municipality. It could be viewed when this is not flowing through the mayor, it's not being communicated through the elected CEO.
Stephanie Meyer? No?
Well, that's, you're the spokesperson, that's nothing against giving donations. I think we're making a lot out of something that doesn't have to be an issue.
I'm just saying, okay, I have no problem with giving donations, I give them out, but I give them as Don Good. I don't give them as Counselor Don Good, I just give them as Don Good. But I don't, that's just me walking in there. But when I hear somebody say, well, it means more coming from a counselor, I don't think it means more when I donate to a hockey club and more, and my neighbor's going, looking for $20 for their kid to go on a thing that comes from Counselor Don Good. I'm just a neighbor, I'm nothing more than that. And I don't pretend to be or to make it a difference. But when you're saying that you perceive that people see it as a difference, then you're acknowledging what I'm saying.
And to a certain extent, I think it's, Counselor so-and-so donated here, why didn't Council X donate as well then? That kind of thing comes to being.
But there again, that's not,
That's not an argument in my mind.
Mhm.
No, 'cause you wanna get them.
Man.
No, it's just not.
Counselor,
Things that I'm not gonna do.
Counselor Scarahon?
Yeah, I think the idea, as soon as you put council, anything council next to your name, you are speaking on behalf of council. And so the other idea is, yeah, like you're conveying influence, or there, it was worded kind of rather well there. Imply favoritism or bias on the part of the counselor, you know, those kinds of ideas that we are, you know, your personal, it's kind of like your personal opinion. It's sort of the same idea, I think. So leaving counselor off of your donation doesn't kind of imply the rest of council's support or lack of support for something, which I think is probably maybe more significant in a lot of regards. So,
Well,
yeah, no one's saying, you know, no one's saying don't give. It's just you don't get to, you know, wave the counselor hat around and imply the support or lack of support from council in other regards by putting counselor next to something. So give freely, please do, you know, it's just, you can leave counselor off, and it's a small enough town, you know, people know, so it's,
You know, you're a counselor anyway.
yeah.
Ms. Parsons and then Counselor Goodman.
So just going back to 6.6B, or, B, accept and respect the decision-making authority lies with council and not with any individual counselor. And council may only act by bylaw, policy, or resolution passed at a council meeting held in public where quorum is present. So when you're giving a gift as a counselor, it can give the impression that it's supported by all of council, or that council has made a decision to do this initiative, and that's just not the case. It should be a decision of council to undertake an initiative. And then on top, just because in this instance, you know, it's just flowers as the example, or, you know, it's an appropriate gift in an individual counselor's eyes. I mean, you have to take yourself sometimes out of it and just think of everyone on a whole. And, you know, just because you feel like yourself are giving an appropriate gift, not every, you know, another counselor or someone down the line is going to give a gift, and someone might find it inappropriate. And then why did the town do this? Why did the town sanction this? Why was this okay? And then it becomes this kerfuffle. Well, no, the town didn't sanction it. The town isn't doing this. Well, a counselor so-and-so. So it gives the impression that the town has undertook this initiative, where that's just not the case. And if someone thinks it's an appropriate initiative, then bring it forward, and administration can look at it. We can bring it forward. We can do these things as a council. But it's not always, everything isn't always,
Which section was that? Six,
Counselor Goodman, you're going to your microphone too.
sorry,
6.6B.
6.6 B, I'm just gonna take a look at that. Council may only act by bylaw, policy, or resolution. So if you do anything, if you act in any way as a counselor outside of those things, you can't really do it, can you? Regardless of what it is. If that's being held as it is, you can only act at the direction of council as a counselor. then you can't give a gift as a counselor because it hasn't been. Now, if council decides to make a resolution that you can go ahead and do that, then that would be fine too. Correct? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Boychuk, any thoughts on this set of clauses?
Well, and it works both ways too, right? Like, you know, there's good that we can do and there's also bad that we can do. So, you know, saying, let's use a touchy example like encampments, right? You know, so if I'm enabling an encampment to go on, you know, as a town councillor, that doesn't look good too to the community and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm personally very careful what I navigate, and I have to make it quite clear lots of times that this is not a town council role I'm on, and I'm not speaking for the council because of some of the groups and organizations I work in, but you know, I love the idea of giving out these things, and maybe that should be a motion from council whenever a new business is, let's choose a councillor to show up with a gift. I think it's a great idea, but it can also backfire on us if it's a controversial thing as well, so.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any other points at this point in time? New points? Okay, so admin, my reading of this right now is that we seem to have a couple of councillors, I guess, who would prefer this not in here, and others who've spoken that it be. So eventually we're going to be looking at this entire bylaw, and at that point in time, motions could be put forward with respect to particular clauses as well, I would think. So we can vote on them at that point in time. That would be appropriate, or the way it's done.
Yeah, so I thought, your worship, you would walk through it here, hoping for direction for us to bring it forward for first reading.
Okay.
And then if amendments need to come after first reading.
So 641 and 642 are ones where some would prefer amendments and others not at this point in time. 643, councillors shall be free from bias with respect to any matter that requires a decision of a council, a committee, or a board. So 644, harassment, sexual harassment, violence-free workplace. We must read and agree. We
Can
must
I ask
read
for-
and adhere to these.
On 643, we
Yeah.
went by that really quick.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's
I'm just not sure what it means.
I don't think it's possible.
643, bias. A councillor shall be free from bias with respect to any matter that requires the decision of council, committee, or whole, or a board. So does this mean you're representing the community, not individual, but Ms. Parsons?
So typically it's encouraged that when a decision is before council, that you come in with an open mind and you listen to the debate and discussions of council, and then you come to a decision. You don't come to the table
Encumbered.
with a decision and, you know, you're supposed to come to the table open. So it's just, you know, demonstrating that you're open, I guess. You're not coming in with a biased opinion and you're not, you know, you're gonna have an open debate and discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussions there? No? Okay, 644, councillors are gonna read and adhere to the town's respectful workplace policy. So it's probably part of the orientation. Complaint procedure. Okay, so, this one, it's kind of technical in the end here, but so throughout the complaint procedure section of this bylaw, where reference is made to the mayor, and the mayor is the subject of the complaint, it's understood that the deputy mayor will fill the role of the mayor. And where the deputy mayor and the mayor are subjects of the complaint, it is understood that the councillor who receives the complaint will fill the role of the deputy mayor. Okay, Councillor Scannell.
What if a complaint goes to the CAO? Would we sit, which, would we change that to the remaining council selects? So for example,
Yeah,
when you guys weren't here last week,
Mhm.
we chose who would chair the meeting.
Yeah.
Would that process not follow?
Yeah, so if the complaint is about the mayor and the deputy mayor, and it's gone to the CAO, it hasn't gone to another counselor, then what happens is the question.
I would just, sorry, I would just disagree with having that part in there at all. The complaint went to someone else, therefore they're the one that run the, I would not include that at all. I would say the council not involved in the complaint would then choose
The chair.
who chairs.
Ms. Parsons.
So basically the reason that's in there is like, so under formal complaint, a complaint must be made in writing dated, and submitted to the mayor. So the process is that a complaint gets submitted to council and typically would be the mayor, but if they're a part of the complaint, it can't go to the mayor, so then it has to go to the deputy mayor. And then if it's not the deputy mayor, then it needs to be someone else on top. So we could amend that to say, the counselor who receives the complaint and is not party to the complaint, I suppose. But it shouldn't come to administration, it should come to a member of council.
But that's kind of hard because somebody's complaining about the mayor and the deputy mayor from beyond the wall. And so who are they going to talk to is the question. I think Councillor Scannahorn is.
Nope,
No?
that's not what I'm asking.
Okay, so Ms. Parsons, you're saying it should automatically go to council then, I guess.
Yeah, so that's been the main practice that I came across in the other code of conduct bylaws. Just that once you have the mayor's out and the deputy mayor's out, it has to go to somebody, and it's hard to subscribe who that would be or prescribe who that would be. But I do like the idea of adding someone not party to that.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, a lot of it then gets driven by the investigator and administration.
Yeah.
Appointing the investigator. So then, once the counselor brings forward that complaint, then it kind of takes over by the investigator. But somebody has to drive that initiative, and somebody on councilor should be the driver of that. So if the mayor and deputy mayor in there, then
If they're out of the picture.
Yeah.
Then we're saying that somebody on council should be in the chair position, kind of, to liaison, etc.
would be the recommendation, but of
Yeah,
course we
yeah.
can change it.
So councillors, would you suggest a change? If so, what wording or not? Deputy Mayor?
So with that, if you and I weren't here, somebody came forward with a complaint. Well, obviously if they were complaining about us, they didn't come to us in the first place, say if they went to Mr. Councillor Scannahorn. So then he would come back to the meeting, and then all together as a collective, they would decide who was going to run that file, correct, or the complaint, or how are you seeing that, Councillor Scannahorn?
Thank you. Complaint, essentially, the counselor who receives the complaint will fill the role of the deputy mayor. It could say, the remainder of council not named in the complaint would choose who fills the role of the deputy mayor. Is I think what I was trying to get to.
So can we have?
So let's say a complaint is submitted about, us three,
Mhm.
then the remaining four would choose who fills the role of the deputy mayor between them.
Deputy Mayor?
I agree with that. I agree that it should not be the person who receives the complaint should not be the one to run, like it should be, unless they are so chosen by the rest of them, then that's fine, but not to be just, appointed, so to speak.
Just because it just hit
Mhm.
Don's desk, because his was the next one to the left or right, whichever way you're facing from me. You know what I mean? Like,
So Ms. Parsons
am I
had a
overcomplicating this? I
suggestion.
don't feel like it's complicated.
No, I think it should be somebody who's not part of that immediate process. Either the receiver of the complaint or the complainer, complainant, Deputy Mayor?
But you can't disqualify that, the person who receives the complaint. If they didn't ask, yeah, but that's where they didn't ask for that. You can't, that's not very diplomatic. So it would have to be the, the collective vote. And if it was that person, then fine, but, it shouldn't be automatically appointed. Right? Councillor Scammer, is that what you're trying to
Yeah,
say?
yeah, just whoever, the remainder of council not named in the complaint would choose who would fill that role,
Exactly.
is my
Okay,
impression of it.
okay, so, Mr. X, complains about the mayor and the deputy mayor. He complains to Counselor A. Counselor A's responsibility then is outlined here, and I have to read the details. So, Ms. Parsons.
So thinking about this on the fly, so the reason it's worded like that right now is because if it's a member of administration or a member of the public, they need someone to submit that to. So if it's the mayor and deputy mayor that they're complaining against, then they just need to pick another counselor and bring that complaint forward, right? That's what needs to happen. So we could add something in there that says, you know, once that's brought forward, if that counselor, you know, brings it forward, then council can appoint a counselor to continue on the initiative. But there needs to be at this beginning stage,
Okay.
it needs to be, you know, if the mayor's out, the deputy mayor's out, now what does the member of the public or administration do? Who do they bring it to? And we can't dictate that without knowing, but I do like the idea of rewording and a counselor not named in the complaint. And then we could add a clause about appointing who would then run it, following the filing of the complaint. Is that?
That's what I'm getting at. Yes,
Perfect.
exactly. Thank
Okay.
you. Sorry.
Yep.
I guess having the initial and then the ongoing is
Yes.
sort of a two different.
Counselor Good?
Then is there a responsibility on the part of the complainant to point out the section of the bylaw that they think you're, because they say, I think he's in contravention of your bylaw. One, he's telling you you're in contravention of 1,000 words. So should there not be a responsibility of the complainant to point out the section of the bylaw that they believe that is being contravened? And not just make a general statement?
That would be.
Ms. Parsons?
As we get further through the bylaw, that's gonna come, that this is just the beginning of throughout, because I
Okay,
wanted to put
fair
this
enough.
header here, because otherwise, the way the bylaw was written, every single time it was you file with the mayor, then there was a comma, or deputy mayor, or counselor, and
Yeah.
then period, and then every single time we said mayor, it was comma, or deputy mayor, or, so we just put this closet, or this.
It says the
covering
definition of,
clause.
well, complainant, there's no definition of complaint, but there is a definition of complainant. And it says that means a person who makes a complaint because the person has reasonable grounds to believe that the conduct of a council has contravened this bylaw. So not just the general statement, you've contravened the bylaw, there, I think there would be a responsibility to point it. Now you're saying it's coming later?
There's a spot of vexatious and frivolous.
Okay, so at this point in time, 7.1 is going to be slightly reworded towards the end there. Okay, who can file a complaint? This says anybody, I believe. Then the next one, inter-council relations. INTER. So I read this as Town Council of Peace River versus Town Council of Community X. But really, it's really within the council, is it not? So between councilors? So is it RA or ER? Maybe just investigate. So councilors are supposed to attempt to resolve issues without the need to do the external assistance as coming up in this policy. Councilors shall not use public forums to discuss issues they may have or are having with other councilors or with council as a whole. Okay, informal complaint process. So, this means discuss if possible, try and get the mayor or various others, depending, to discuss and, I guess, resolve the issue if possible. Does this all make sense? Does it make sense if it's an employee?
This is still about inter-council,
We're still on inter, okay?
in a way, it seems.
7.2, well, section 7. So just a question out there, it may resolve itself later. But if I have a, I don't know, somebody who works in one of the departments, comes to one of the counselors and says the mayor is blah, 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 doing something. Is this covered in here and they know how to go about it? Actually, they do, because in here it says go to the CAO first if you're, an employee. Okay, forget my comment. Formal complaints. Okay, so this, oh, pardon me, Deputy Mayor?
I just have a question about, where it says, they may request the mayor to assist in an informal discussion with the councillor. If they're just saying may request the mayor, well, if you may not, then who else are you gonna request? Like, what if there's a situation, like, what does that mean? They may request the mayor. So do you request the mayor when you have an informal kind, or you may, or you may not?
If you're doing also, if you're doing the informal complaint, I'm reading this as you may. So if you don't choose that method, are you
Yeah,
then
but it's-
choosing the formal?
But is the, yeah, that's only what I'd like to clarify, because you may, but you may not. So then if you may not, what does that look like? That it doesn't clarify.
Thoughts?
So 7.5 is just prior to filing a formal complaint, a member of the public or a counselor may speak with the counselor and encourage the counselor to comply with this bylaw. So they are basically saying you can just approach the counselor that you're having an issue with and talk to them. 7.6 is just, if in doing that, if you want to ask the mayor, deputy mayor, another counselor to come with you and support you in that discussion, then you may. It's not required. You could just approach the counselor yourself. But if you wanted to have the mayor's support with you or the deputy mayor's, you could.
So 7.6 is kind of, for the complaint and for us to recognize that a complainant may come to one of us for this assistance, and it would be good form to
Mediating the,
mediate.
yeah.
That it's allowed, but not required.
Deputy Mayor, does that answer the?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, formal complaints, anything there? So the major change in this bylaw is that an investigator, outside investigator soon steps into the process if it gets that far. I believe.
Where are we at?
Changing. We're at, formal complaints, 7:10 and following. Deputy Mayor, you have a question or? No?
I just answered it by reading the next point.
Okay, any thoughts though on, first of all, the formal complaint section, 7:10 through 7:13?
Yeah, I'd like to see an addition,
Counselor Good?
in 7:12. There's B, the nature of the conduct, which is subject of the complaint. And I'd like to see a section in there, D, possibly, pointing out a description of the section of the bylaw that is in contravention. In other words, if I'm going to accuse you of a crime, I should be able to tell you what the crime is. It's theft, it's jaywalking, it's being nasty according to this. So I think they should have to be able to specify that. They can't point out what you're breaking, they're just doing a shotgun. Because I don't like shotgun charges, I'm gonna throw the whole bucket at you, and if one piece sticks, I gotcha. No, point it out. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, but I think it should be specific.
Other counselors, your reaction to the thought, Counselor Scamahan?
So under 7.12.c, the nature of the conduct which is subject to complaint and
And
the section of the
the section
bylaw
is contravening.
that's been contravened.
In other words, for example, he called me a jerk and that was disrespectful, fair enough. You
Yeah,
pointed out the section and you point the action,
I
and you
feel,
pointed out the section. of the
I feel like the intention of C is to have that, but it should be clear.
Make it clear.
Other counselors on this one? Okay, so it seems it's Deputy Mayor.
So, do you go first to the informal complaint, handle it that way, and then to formal, or if you wish, or if you want, you can go straight to it? Oh, so there isn't nothing in place to say, do it this way first, see if that works, and then
You're encouraged to do it informally. Yeah, you can.
it should be informally, but it shouldn't, but there's nothing saying that that should come first. That's too bad.
So 7.5, it's got a may in there for the informal complaint, may do such and such. But if, you're either not successful there or don't wish to go there, then formal complaint is the.
Well, it could be something so egregious. Let's say it was something like a harassment part of it. Well, now, what, I gotta go talk to the guy who harassed me very, very horribly, or the gal who harassed me very, very horribly, like I have to do that first. So that's why you might want to jump the informal part and go straight to the formal part, because because of the nature of the complaint, it may need to go there. And there is a part in here about vexatious and frivolous complaints that will kind of like should. If someone decides to deliberately skip the informal part for whatever reason, they could be caught by that part if there's nefarious intent in their complaint.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it would be better to do it at the informal level.
That's it, that's why it's.
And we could put the word in, people are encouraged.
Yeah.
And put the phrase in there, people are encouraged. And that says our wish that we would prefer that a person brought it, if they have a problem with me or a problem with anybody, they talk to the person or they do that. I think we could put an encouragement clause in there without too much difficulty.
You could edit 7.5 to say that,
It's 7.8.
7.8, there you go.
It's seven which?
7.8.
7.8.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, you're good.
He's made it appear.
Yeah, okay, so, we're okay with 7.12 then?
Put 7.8 prior to the informal. Change the order.
It could be moved up, is
It
what
could
you're
be moved
saying.
up. Put 7.8 at like.
7.5 is.
7.8 is the first part of informal. It goes prior to 7.4.
Okay, 7.13. So if it gets to this point, the mayor is directing the CAO to appoint an investigator from a selected list of qualified investigators, which council approves. Oh, council approves from time to time. So there would be this list of investigators that council has approved, I don't know, sometime or other. And the mayor says, CAO, pick one of those investigators. Is that how this works? Yes, says Ms. Parsons. Counselors, are you following that and okay with it? Okay, review of complaint by investigator. So here we have some timelines and so on. Okay, so this is a lot, so here we go. 7.14, 7.15, 7.16, anything on those ones? Investigators appointed. He's got various timeframes, including 180 days from something. How about 7.17, 7.18? Okay, the investigator could say this is not worth investigating and writes his written reasons to the mayor and the council. 7.19. Okay, so the complainer and the counselor gets notified by the mayor of the conclusion of the investigator's issues. I have a question here about 7 days from a council meeting. So it means that a special council meeting might have to be organized in order to satisfy some of these. Yes. 721, 722, anything there? 23, anything there? Okay, informal resolution of complaint during the investigation. So investigators he's doing his thing. Tries to resolve it just by, well, it's talking mediation to the complainer and the one being complained about.
So this could be something like the complaint comes in and maybe they skipped over the informal process, but the investigator believes there's a pathway for that.
That's the way I would interpret this. Okay, okay, formal resolution. Okay, there's some timeframes there. 729, if the complaint is substantiated and the counselor is in breach, then the mayor has to do stuff. Or the person assigned to be the deputy does it, and if not the deputy and the mayor, then this person who's elected at that previous discussion. I was a little, it wasn't too clear to me always in 730, if the complainer was always present during the discussions, especially if the complainer was complaining about another counselor, were they sitting in the meetings all the time? Or the complainer, the complainant, as I call it, they leave at some point in time, the person being complained about still stays in the meeting?
Sure, I would.
Like, I don't know.
I would think during the complaint part, yes, during the consideration part, no.
You're saying both of them would leave? Or one?
Well, I'm saying that in the complaint part, when the person is making the complaint, they should be open about what their complaint is in front of the person that they're making the complaint about. So the person who's being complained about or being charged with breaking the bylaw should have full knowledge of what that charge is, and that if the person is going to speak to it, should have a right to, you should be able to hear the person who's making that statement. So I don't think there's a problem with that. During the discussion where council is making a decision, then there are some rules around that that are already enumerated in here on who is present during what parts. But during the complaint part, I think you should be able to be there while the person's making the complaint.
So my question still is, if the person being complained about, are they there during the deliberation part when the complainer has had to leave? Is the person being complained about still sitting there?
Probably not. That could influence it.
Like, I just wasn't sure reading this. Maybe Ms. Parsons can clarify.
So just under, 730A, once the counselor has completed any oral comment with the counselor and legal counsel for the counselor, if any, shall be asked to leave the meeting. So once you guys have talked about the complaint, they've given their comments, or added anything to their written response to the complaint, then they're asked to leave. And that's same with the complainant, if they're a counselor. Since all of the oral evidence has been given or written response and you've looked at the complaint, then they're asked to leave for the determination required under 730D.
So both of them are leaving at some point in time here.
Basically at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, no, that was my question. Other questions on that section, no, counselors? We hope we never get into this, but 731 carries on to D part. Anything there? 732, the council does not accept the investigator's report. What to do? And everything 732, 33, 34, okay. Sanctions, there's a list of sanctions that are here. And any other sanction council deems reasonable is the last M part.
There's one that gives me a bit of discomfort here.
Mhm.
And it's the only one, which is, you're allowed to remove their pay, et cetera, which is fair. That's in, where is it here? Reduction or suspension of remuneration is decided.
What number is it?
Oh, it's fair enough. It's got excluding its allowance for, I thought it was, I read it as including. It's
Eight.
excluding, I'm fine with
Yeah,
it. I'm fine with it,
8.1G.
totality.
Good with that? Okay, any others, counselors? Okay, how about 8.2? So the counselor whose conduct is the subject of the sanctioned motion shall not vote on the sanctioned motion and will be asked to leave the meeting during the vote.
Is that legal?
I think it is, because. Yeah, I think so.
It's like we were just discussing earlier, how you always have to vote. And yes, you definitely have a conflict of interest here.
And it could potentially be pecuniary.
It could be.
And 8.3, just a realization, any costs or inconveniences, legal or otherwise arising from a breach or sanction imposed are solely at the cost of the offending counselor.
Question.
Yeah.
Only if he's guilty.
So if the town has to impose their own legal advice, like if the town has to get a legal opinion throughout this process, would the offending counselor be responsible for that as well as their own legal costs? Is that good? Because I could read that way.
I would read that way.
So I read it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Counselor good.
and the corollary from that. The counselor is cleared. He's expected to pay for his own lawyer and his own defense out of his own pocket or her own pocket, okay? So the counselor's supposed to pay for their own defense and they're cleared. Is the town then going to pick up the bill for the lawyer? Because innocent and made whole are two kind of concepts. If you're innocent, you should be made whole. And it also stops people from making frivolous stuff, because my feeling is that if you successfully defend against the charge, you're cleared. Why are you out? Lawyers aren't cheap. So my feeling is if they're cleared,
So
the town should be on the hook. I just feel that way.
counselors, any thoughts on this? Add another clause saying that or Counselor Carr?
I thought it said further back that any no costs were carried by the individual. So we're gonna be in conflict with that.
Yeah,
Well-
like I see,
We're not, because they have to pay their lawyer, choose their lawyer up to the point of the decision. Once the decision is made, I think that's fine. You gotta pay for your own defense. Town has to pay for their offense, whatever. I got no problem with that, but I'm saying after the thing is over, why does the town get to pay their taxes? Nobody in town, nobody on behalf of the town is gonna have money come out of their own pocket for this investigation. I'll guarantee you that. You're not gonna Director of Finance is not gonna have to take a chunk out of his paycheck to pay for the charge. It's not gonna happen. Neither is the CAO, neither is another counselor. So there's no penalty for any individual on the one side, but the other guy, who's cleared, now has a bill for X number of $1,000s for his lawyer or whatever, and he is expected to just go, oh, I'll take that one for the team. No, I don't think that's fair. I don't think there's any justice in that.
There's not.
Counselor Carr?
Yeah, I think Don's right. If you're found innocent, then you should, sorry. I think if you're found innocent, then you should not. What's the bill? I think it should be covered by the other party.
Yeah. Others? I'm getting ahead. I agree totally with that. Yeah. So there would be another clause added, or in conjunction with, 8.3 to say that. Ms. Parsons is nodding her head over there, so. Okay, so add the clause if the person is, not found in violation and talks about the legal costs.
It wouldn't be an 8.3 because that's for legal or otherwise arising from a breach a breach or
Mhm.
sanction imposed.
Mhm,
But if there is no breach,
mhm.
and the fact that it was reasonable, like you can make a reasonable charge and be found innocent.
Yeah,
Right?
so I think
So
that's
the
what
fact
I'm,
that it's reasonable is the investigator said it was reasonable to go forward. That's fair. That's fine and dandy. Once you're cleared,
yeah, so I think that's what she's
we can.
going to add in there. Okay, anything else on sanctions? No, sorry, Ted, not yet, or not today. Confidentiality of investigative process, so this is all happening in closed. Procedural bylaw, compliance and enforcement, anything there? Review of the bylaw, 12.1. This bylaw gets reviewed every 4 years, starting from the date the bylaw is passed. Although it can be amended between times. And that brings us to the end of this refreshed version of the bylaw. Is there any part that somebody says, oh, but what about this? I forgot. Section. Okay, so Ms. Parsons, you've got our notes. And perhaps at this time, council, someone could direct administration to bring the revised bylaw forward to the next council meeting for consideration of first reading. In light of all the chat and so on, that would go into that revision. Would somebody like to do that?
Well, we can't make a motion, so
No, we can move to direct admin to bring it back.
I'll move that.
Okay, Councillor Good directs administration to bring back the revised bylaw forward to the next council meeting for consideration of the first reading. That needs a little wording. All those in favor of that? It was carried. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, decision here. We've had quite a long session, including an hour prior to this. Would you like to take a short 5-minute break at this point in time?
Sure.
Yes, okay, 6:37, so we're back here at 6:42. topic, so, we're on. Ms. Bell, Director of Community Services, on the topic of the River Edge ownership and maintenance.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, interesting information, not even what expected from administration. We did some further investigation and research as per the notice of motion of Councillor Ford in regards to this request of leasing river edge property or property adjacent to the river throughout the community. And in our conversations with the appropriate ministries, it was discovered where technically the adjacent landowner, which is not always the town of Peace River, there are other property owners along the riverbank in various locations on both sides of the river. The adjacent property owner, it essentially has an extension of their property as the river changes and the bed of the river develops. Silt develops, essentially you have the potential of gaining more property. Some areas might have the potential of losing some of your property. Correct. But we do in this particular case on the east side of the river, sorry, a predominant amount of the property adjacent to the river bank would be an extension of town property. Therefore, we have the ability to apply our bylaws and enforcement of the bylaws on that said property. Where it gets a little bit gray is where the property moves to bed and shore.
Just a reminder to everyone here that we're live and the microphones do pick up a lot of conversations. Mr. Simpsons. Just a reminder, we're live and the microphone does pick up a lot of the conversation to broadcast. So, Ms. Bell?
Lost my train of thought. I believe, I think I
Bed
was.
and shore.
Bed and shore, thank you. Where we move into areas of foliage vegetation, where it's more water, wet areas, that definitely is not town property. Where there's less of that type of vegetation moving into trees and full shrubs, would be adjacent property. So there are some gray zones, but generally speaking, quite a lot of the east side of the river is the extension of the adjacent property owner.
It also says in your report, if I may,
Yes.
that the town is also aware of a mechanism through which an order to vacate could be enforced by Alberta Environment and protected areas on the areas that are not an extension of the town. Am I correct?
Yes, and that's where it gets a little bit gray. They made it clear that specifically needs to be vacant crown property and identified as crown. So crown property, a vacant crown property is not necessarily that gray zone between bed and shore and what would be identified adjacent property. They are more specifically identifying lots that are crown owned and sitting unused at this point. So may not apply necessarily always in the river examples, but other property owned by the crown within the municipality, that would apply.
Another question. The Fisheries and Oceans has control over land to a certain level, to water, and to a certain degree, high tide, low tide, high part of river. Am I correct on that?
This is another area of gray, because the province right now, we're under the Provincial Water Act.
Right.
DFO is the
Navigable water.
Thank you. I'm not sure why I can't pronounce that. So they play together, as it were. Sometimes DFO is involved, sometimes not. For example, the North End Boat Launch, the launch portion of that location is actually owned by DFO, Department of Fisheries and Oceans. But the provincial province would be involved in areas where the high water mark is involved.
In that case, is there a like opportunity to approach BFO?
I
I
don't
could-
believe so, no, but I would have to look into that
Okay.
further. Yeah. They are specifically more inclined and more, responsible or involved in situations where there's flowing water, not necessarily land portion of things.
Okay, so,
Complex.
the go forward here, you mentioned, tree removal and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because there's some,
We are looking at specifically some tree removal maintenance, specifically in the areas near Buckholz Financial Building, just for a place of point of reference. Moving south, or sorry, north towards the bridge. A large portion of that area though is CN property, so we haven't tried to engage with CN to see if they wanted any tree removals in that area, but they haven't gotten back to us, so we don't have authority in those zones. And then some portions that are Alberta Transportation. So we'll do portions that are town owned, and there's some private, also a private lot or two in that particular area. So we will be looking at doing tree removal on the town portions.
and by tree removal, do you mean tree removal or cutting it? Cutting it so.
Bit of both. Some of we are definitely trying to cut back from the trail edge. But there's a substantive drop, so we'll do what we can. There's some trees that need to be removed because they are moving into hazard trees. It will be somewhat selective. It will not be a full clear cut because there's some foliage is lovely, but we want to open up that particular space.
Counselor Skelton?
If there's a question of CN not engaging, can we engage them, say, with our unsightly premises bylaw if they are?
Not on this particular item, no. There's nothing unsightly per se. There's some garbage, but not on tree removal, no.
No, I don't mean on tree removal, sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
conflate the two, but just kind of on your previous mentioning of, some of the property adjacent to the
Oh.
river being CN property, should there be, a colossal mess there for whatever reason?
Yeah.
And they are not really kind of getting back to you, would that be a mechanism to kind of, kick the bee's nest?
CN actually would be fairly responsive. They have a whole, I don't want to say police force, but a police. Yeah, that would deal with any issues on their property, which actually is another resource for us. But currently, that particular area, that CN property, there's some garbage or had been. This may have been cleaned up in the most recent riverbank cleanup. I'm not aware if they did any cleanup along that particular area. But at this point, we're just looking at tree maintenance, so we'll allow them to spend their own dollars on their own tree maintenance as opposed to our tax dollars.
So the town could do this on what is considered town-owned property.
Correct.
Private businesses would have to figure out their
That's
own.
correct. Their own also, yeah.
Any other counselors with questions? Counselor Carr?
How far north are we going to go? Or are we planning to go?
The lot, there's a lot owned by CN surrounding the train trestle. And without showing you the map, that particular lot is where we would end. So it's,
North of the ridge.
no, we weren't planning north of the bridge. We are doing some tree maintenance along the Dyke Trail, wherever it's starting to encroach onto the trail as part of a parks cleanup, but that's separate from this particular area. So right now, we're focusing our efforts from Buckholz Financial to as far as we can go to the end of where our property ends and where CN's would begin. And it sort of opens up approximately there anyway, so it will work out fairly well. I think you'll notice quite a significant difference once we start cutting back in. We're looking at about 6 feet. We have construction also going in that area this summer for trail maintenance, so we have to make sure the contractors have clear, clear space for their equipment also. So it will have, it's perfect timing for both purposes.
So move ahead is on wait mode to get a tree maintenance service contractor and also hope that there's no birds nesting in the area.
Yes, we do, as per the Migratory Bird Act, we are required, and this applies to private property also, just would like to put that out there. You need to be ensuring you're not taking out a tree with a bird nest in it, and if there is presence of a nest, active nest, must be active. At that point, we may not be able to do any tree maintenance until the Migratory Bird Act ends, the timeframe ends, I believe it's August 10th.
So only apply to migratory birds?
Migratory birds. There's a lot of them, so. Robins, yes, so we are chock-a-block full of robins within this area, so we'll see. They might not have nested in that particular area.
They all look like starlings to me when I walk by there.
Okay, councillors, any other questions on this matter?
Yep.
Councillor Carr?
So this will then fit underneath our no camping on town property bylaw.
That's correct.
So will we be posting signs stating that?
Not necessarily, because we'd have to post signs everywhere. It's more of a matter of education and education to those who may be camping in places that we don't want to camp.
Any further discussion?
In addition to that, how long are we going to allow the current campers to stay? Now that we have jurisdiction?
Well, we're gonna be I've already passed on the bylaw to the RCMP staff sergeant last week, because it was finalized at the end of April, signed on the dotted line. So he's been made aware that the bylaw is active and available for enforcement, and the town would be calling upon them to act on our behalf if needed. They were also informed that some information was being brought forth on owned property and how this might change our ability to enforce this particular report that was coming to council this evening. So we will be making a request, and then I guess it will be up to that organization of how the next steps proceed. And we'll work with them to come up with a bit of a plan forward on that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bell. Perhaps someone would move that council accept the briefing note regarding the River's Edge ownership and maintenance update for information. Councillor Carr moves. Councillor Carr moves that. All those in favor of that motion? Okay, it is carried. Thank you, Ms. Bell. And you're still in the chair, so now the CM lease at lands formerly known as the Lions Campground.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very interesting development under this particular portfolio. There was a plan to bring forward a conversation about CN for this meeting, but we've had a slight change, a slight being rather significant, with CN coming forward and providing an offer to the town to lease the property. This is not necessarily new to the town. We have been leasing a portion of this property, approximately half of what you see in the attached map, to provide camping sites for what was formerly known as the Lions Campground. But they have come back to the town and is offering that entire space. And caveat here is this is a very approximate drawing. There's still the actual lease document from CN has not been received by administration yet, but this is based on some previous conversations that we've had with CN on this particular property, and this is what they were offering. So approximate. They are offering a long-term lease which previously our lease with CN for the campground area were 5-year increments. So this potentially changes a future conversation about what you could do at the location, because a 5-year lease has quite a number of limiting factors. Your administration would never recommend installing significant infrastructure into land that's not owned by the municipality, especially on a very short-term lease being 5 years. So there's lots of limitations to short-term leases. Long-term leases have some potential to open your opportunities up a little broader. In this particular case, CN is providing, general offer right now is 99-year term for $170,000 with the option for purchase of $1 in the future, not in immediate after that 99-year time. We don't have, again, all the details of the lease. That, of course, would come forward once we receive that information, but we're looking for council's direction this evening if you would like your administration to pursue this opportunity with CN. And at that time, we'll make sure we receive all the details and get all the ins and outs within those lease documents.
Well, it's certainly an interesting item. It's been interesting challenge in the past dealing with that company in that land space. So anyways, councilors, what do you think? Councilor Scanlon.
Seem to recall a previous discussion, once upon a time where it was like, you need this fence, you need to mitigate this slope, you need to blah, blah, blah. So I guess if you were to pursue this, we would definitely need some clarity around, you know, what they might have for terms of that lease, because it could get, I'm sure you already have imagined, very complicated very quickly.
Yeah, and there will always be a component, because we're adjacent to a CN yard. So there will be limitations and we won't be able to ignore those limitations, especially at a yard space there. And I didn't include this in my report, and I'm going to turn to Mr. Fisher if he has any recollection. Nope. There's a certain distance of certain types of structures, occupancy of residential structures from
If they were to sell you the property, they will put a
Yeah.
restrictive covenant on the
Yes,
property that
yeah.
says, you can do this kind of stuff with it, but don't do this.
Yeah.
There will be some restrictions on what we're allowed to do. with that.
Yeah, and remember this site is, and which also could also be changed, but this is zoned community development. So this is recreational, cultural purpose, with whatever else is within that particular zoning. So there's always going to be a limitation because it is adjacent to that other CN property, specifically their, I'm doing well for words this evening.
Jason.
Their CN yard, the yard, thank you.
Councilor Good.
The word is aphasia. The question I have is, I mean, one half of me says, let's take a real close look at this. The other half says, what are the expenses going to be to make the land usable? Even if you decided you just wanted to make it fair land, you still have costs. I mean, because we haven't been considering that other area.
Yeah.
We've only been considering the area we've historically leased.
Mhm.
Now we're looking at quite a large chunk. And I'm not familiar enough with it to have even an idea of what it would take just to clear it, just to make it usable land to go forward with any project. So I'm not,
Yeah.
it's cheap, but
No, that's a fair concern, and unfortunately, it sort of depends. The gamut of potential costs it's so broad and wide. It really depends on what you'd like to do with the site. If you want to maintain it as a campground and offer that service, that's a different level of costing than turning it into a full green space, because it is a gravel area. If you keep just gravel, that might be more cost, and there's there's such a broad, it really, really depends on what you potentially see as the opportunities at the site and what your limitations you would like to place in terms of how much you want to spend on anything that you put there. So different ways to tackle this.
So, if we were to get more information from CN about this lease and any caveats or whatever they put on that, that might then better help us, go forward too.
It's possible. The caveats in the current lease agreement are fairly mundane and not anything significant. There's no requirements for additional fencing, additional berms or whatnot. So one could assume some of that would stay the same. However, if something is more permanent, especially in a 99-year lease, they might have some of the other requirements that are caveats that were in more of a sales situation.
And at the end of this 99 years, they would sell it for $1.
The option for sale. Yes.
Their option.
Mm,
So it's like a buyout at the end of a car lease?
Our option.
Our
Ah,
option, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Counselor Scamhorn?
And what about subleasing once, say we were to lease it?
They've been very agreeable in the past. That was our exact situation. Whether it was known and unknown to them in the far past, but in the recent, probably the last 7+, they were very well aware of that and that wasn't an issue for them. And in our conversations, that hasn't been an issue to date at all. As long as it fits within the site and any other, yeah, correct, yeah. If we attempt to put in something inappropriate, that's when CN would not be very agreeable to a sublease. High rise, they might be agreeable to that. It's more the residential component is the issue when it comes to adjacent to rail yard.
Because before there was
Yes.
caveats about soundproofing and
Yeah.
vibration, this and that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, counselors that haven't spoken on this, any thoughts you want to bring up? Deputy Mayor?
So now you would have to go back to them and ask them, like, what could will you go back to them and ask them, like you said, they don't have that many restrictions on that land, right?
In our previous
In the
lease,
previous, but
yeah.
the new one may have?
It's possible. Again, we haven't seen it yet. I was really hoping to have a draft by tonight's meeting so I could answer some of these questions much more educated fashion. But I haven't received the document yet. And at that time, and of course, we have to bring back a formal report to council for formal motions. So that information would follow that report.
Okay, well, I'd like to see that. And then, was there not a, kind of a study done on how the campground is right now, like the state of it? Was there anything
No,
back yet on that?
no, we haven't,
Okay.
we haven't done anything at that site yet.
Okay,
That was to come forward to council to have a conversation of how do you want to proceed.
okay,
Yeah, so
okay,
then this popped up, so.
okay. I'll wait for that. Thank you.
Okay, so, the question from administration is, whether council wants to put forth a motion to direct administration to pursue a long-term lease with CN for a portion of the CN property adjacent to the previous line's campground. So if someone wants to put forth that motion, or this gets accepted as for information, and perhaps, that's the end of it.
I'll move that council, page 6. I'll move that council, I would move that administration, thank you, pursue a long-term lease with CN for a portion of the CN property adjacent to the previous Lions campground.
Counselor Good?
Little discomfort with the word pursue.
Perhaps I might recommend.
Please do. I just used the under request, I just kind of reused the wording there.
That council direct administration to further investigate the 99-year term lease with CN for the lands adjacent to the lands known as Lions Campground and bring this item forward to a future meeting for further discussion.
It's exactly what I said.
That's what we heard.
That's what I heard.
Okay, so we've got the motion in front of us. Everybody understands the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? It is carried. Thank you, Mrs. Bell. And next we have CAO Miller, who's talking about electronic signs and advertising.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the item before you is regarding electronic signage and advertising. So back at the end of March, council received a presentation and a proposal from local business owner and entrepreneur proposing the installation of an electronic LED advertising sign on highways and wanting to partner or council consider partnering by way of funding the power supply to these signs or waiving the lease fees for the lands in exchange for the advertising space. So while administration gave consideration to the proposal, we appreciate Mr. Press's proposal and his desire to collaborate with the town. At this time, administration does not recommend moving forward with this idea. So on the surface, the offer seems simple, but it does open a door that does require some consideration, investigation, and further evaluation, such as are the proposed lands even ours? Mr. Press suggested that they're the town-controlled lands, but we believe that they are under the jurisdiction of the province. If we proceed under the assumption that the lands are the towns, or that we could find town land for them to utilize, and we would simply look to pay the electricity cost, is that fair to accept that process and to enter into an agreement with Mr. Press without holding some form of public bidding process, such as a request for proposal or an expression of interest to allow other sign companies that may be equally interested in undertaking such a project? And then finally, or thirdly, not finally, there are others, but what is council's working priorities? So investigation into this and execution of such a public bidding process would require considerable time on administration's part, and we simply don't have the capacity to do so. Should council desire administration to look more into this proposal, we would come back and seek direction from council on what priority projects we are currently working on that you would like postponed for us to investigate this initiative. If the town declines to pursue the proposal, it doesn't mean that Mr. Press is unable to move forward with the project, in particular if the lands, as we believe, are under provincial control, or he looks for other lands to be utilized, which just simply mean that the town would not be partnering to cover costs of the private business venture at this time. The town, subsequent to this presentation, the town has also been approached by another digital sign company that has existing signs and seeking to enter into advertising agreements with us. And while administration is keen on improving our communication and ensure messages are widely communicated, the cost of such an agreement are around $10,000 a year, and is not a consideration that was built into our town budget for 2024. So a priority of councils is researched into alternative streams of revenue generation in order to ease growing pressure on our mill rates. Administration suggests that digital signage may be an avenue worth investigating, with primary uses being town and community information and events. The town could consider installation of electronic signage as a future capital project with the goal of selling advertising space. Ad sales could recover potentially the operating costs and provide for some capital investment costs, leaving a consistent future revenue stream while reducing external advertising expense. So it is something for us to explore down the road. So for this request, the council accepts the report being presented, indicating their support to decline further investigation into the proposed digital signage partnership with a private for-profit business or otherwise council direct administration to bring this item forward to a future council meeting for formal resolution and including a discussion on what priorities we would like to set aside at this time.
Thank you. Councilors, discussion on this idea? So essentially, we've got, one presentation we had a week or so ago, suggesting some signage. We're unsure, the town admin is unsure if the signage locations are the town's or somebody else's. There was a cost commitment under that proposal. Meanwhile, the town now has another digital company suggesting that the town buy advertising through them. Or the town thinks it could make some money if it had its own digital advertising. These people are making money apparently, so maybe the town could. That seems to be the three scenarios, more or less. And I guess there could be a fourth one, put an RFP out there just saying, bring us more ideas, people, or something. Anyways, so councilors, what do you think? Deputy Mayor?
So was there a cost? When you did your research on the town owning one, was there a cost attached to that you found?
Through your worship, no, we haven't done any research. That would be down the road when, as part of the mandate to look for alternative revenue sources.
I'd like to see that pursued a little bit of our for the future.
Okay, anything with respect to the proposals that were mentioned in the briefing note in comments at this point in time? Oh, sorry, Councilor Good?
Yeah, I have to speak to it to a degree. I mean, Mr. Paris is a friend of mine. And I'm putting that right out there. He is a friend of mine. And I know that he meant well bringing this to the town of Peace River. And I know that his motivation was not purely to put money in his own pocket. I mean, he was doing it to further the interests of the town. And I think that has to be acknowledged and recognized, which it is in one line. So I appreciate that. But I think the difficulty is a person brings an idea like this to the town. And then subsequent to that, somebody hears about that idea and says, well, I'd like to get in on the pie or whatever. Unfortunate or fortunate, depending. The town then looks at it and says, well, maybe there's an opportunity for us to do it ourselves, but it wasn't really on our radar prior to that. At least it wasn't ever brought up to me prior to that. So in a way, when a person brings an idea to the town to put forth a proposal, they're almost putting a noose around their own throat and saying, well, whatever. And I mean, I know that the idea of this was to benefit the town, but it's an unfortunate situation when the originator of the idea is now going to be in a very reactive position. And I'm talking about any future ideas. And I don't really have a problem with that on one level, is that we're not acting on Mr. Paris's behalf, and neither am I. My responsibility is to act on the behalf of the citizens of the town of Peace River. I just think it's unfortunate that situation becomes this when somebody has a really creative idea and brings a creative idea. And maybe the benefit to the town is that the creative idea was brought forth and the town will benefit. I really want some recognition for Mr. Paris for bringing the idea to the town. If we decided to pursue it ourselves out of that, then I think it's open for him to bid on, same as everybody else. That's fine. There may be something there. I don't even know quite what I'm trying to explain. It's just that it puts me in an uncomfortable position as a human being. And a person, the guy, I've got this really good idea that might benefit the town. But, you know, all these buts come into it, and then one of the things that was put in here is that, in the motion is that we accept it, indicating their support to decline further into investigation into the proposed digital signage partnership with a private non-for-profit business, but we're also leaving open to explore a private signage partnership with a private business. Because we basically alluded to that, saying this other person wants to get involved and we would have to, you know, such of this. While the administration is keen to improve the town's communications, sure, our message are widely communicated. We're now going to potentially enter into a relationship with another private business, but not this one, because we say into this proposed partnership. So I'm just explaining my discomfort that I have a real. And I'm saying on a human level, I have a real problem with somebody bringing an idea like this to the town. And not even a and I'd at least like to see at a very base minimum. Thank you for bringing the creativity and thought behind and looking for solutions, and which there were. If you guys could bring power to this, we could do this. If this could happen, we could do this. It's really in a way, it's sort of telling businesses, don't bring us ideas because we got to throw them out to everybody after. Maybe if everybody knows that ahead of time, that's fine. I probably said enough to make my feelings clear, but it just makes me feel bad. There's something about this that just doesn't feel right.
Okay, any other comments? So, okay, Councillor Scarborough.
I mean, it could be an idea that is a little bit ahead for us to even kind of take steps on. It might be sort of appropriate for us to, let's say, wait a couple of years on this and sort of, what you would say, let the market decide. You know, maybe after a couple of years, you know, signs do go up, you know, and we find that, well, these here are better ones for us to advertise on and you know, that kind of thing later. And you know, sort of allow that process to occur organically without becoming involved in it at all whatsoever. The other thing is we do have our own building. So for example, this weekend I was driving past the Athabasca Hall. Not that it's any of my business, but there was a bunch of vehicles there. So those of us in the vehicle I was in were like, I wonder what's at the hall right now. And it's like, well, sure would be kind of nice if they had a digital sign on the side of it that would say, you know, I went to the play the other day, the Sinners one that Dave Cambridge put on, and it was really great, you know, but you know, if you weren't on social media or if you didn't see him in the staff room because he was subbing for a colleague of yours, you know, you might not have known about it. That sort of idea. So there's opportunities for us to put signage and this kind of thing on our own stuff for our own purposes or whatever. So I wouldn't, you know, necessarily discount that. But I think in terms of that vision and that idea of digital signs going up around the town for the purpose of selling, advertising, that kind of thing, I would have the most comfort with allow that to develop on its own as the market dictates, and then we would partner in when we felt it appropriate. It just seems so early now for us to take, essentially would be taxpayer dollars and investing in a business that could or could not provide return on those. And that also to me doesn't feel appropriate to a degree. That's what I think.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Carr, any thoughts on this one?
I think it's a good idea.
Councillor Boychuk?
I kind of have the same sentiment as Don there, you know, along those lines. But it's something we should look at in how we handle.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, any further?
So just to Councillor Good's comments, would we then send, well, I guess we're thanking him for bringing the idea forward, but what about the other individual that came and asked us to advertise on their signs? Like, wait, do we not acknowledge that they asked us to do it? Right, basically, they both came
Well,
Right,
one,
like how would you-
one I understand was subsequent to the other, subsequent to the presentation. Now, we don't know if it was because of that presentation or not, but I've been in business long enough to know that there could potentially be that. But at a minimum, what I do know is that somebody came to council. I do know somebody came in here and put a presentation forth, and I do know that they called councilors to talk about it. And then they were directed to get a hold of our administration and bring the idea, and they did what they were asked to do by the councilors, and we did what they were, because we were, the councilors that were asked to communicate with them said, the advice we were given was get them to bring it to administration, which we did, and which the person did, which Jamie did. And, or Mr. Paris, or the way you wish. Well, I know we can't make motions to council, and I'm not gonna make one, but I think there has to be a methodology of thanking a person publicly when they bring an idea to council like that, and to even to explore that there should be something there to give the person recognition. It's not a paycheck, but it is recognition of the person's community spirit that they wanted to partner with us and to work with us to achieve something to everybody's benefit. That's just my view.
So does council, think that we should investigate at some point in the future, electronic signs and advertising electronically by somebody someplace? Do we think that that is something that the town should look at?
It's private industry.
Anybody else?
I believe it's something we should look at in the future.
Anybody else?
Well, I'm fine with looking at options to get our message out regardless. And that would, to me, that includes signage. It also includes our website, which means we've all contracted with somebody to do a website. So I mean, I have no problem with that. I have no problem putting money into dispersal of our ideas and our projects, et cetera. Matter of fact, I agree with it. I guess what I'm speaking to is a separate part of that. I think those are two separate things. The one that we should explore that, yes, I think we should. I think that there should, and I'm not putting it out as a direction, but council, but administration could come back and say, we have this idea of how we can do something, whatever.
Okay, so I heard you say, perhaps explore something related to electronic signs and advertising.
Yeah.
I heard Deputy Mayor say, kind of, she's thinking that it'd be a good idea to look at. Anybody else? I heard, Councillor Carr think not so much of that.
Well, one way we could express our thanks, which I agree with you on, and we've done this for other developments as well. If somebody has an idea, it has potential positive spin-offs for us, is to provide, support in ways that they may later need. So the other day at a meeting, we did a letter of support for a development in town that was requesting it to help with some kind of investing situation. Didn't cost us a dime, but except for the time that it took for us to pass and write the letter. So, in if should we decide to express our gratitude for the time and the ideas and whatever else that we maybe can't action right yet, we could invite them to, should Mr. Paris continue down his path privately, we could say, keep us in the loop, and should we require that type of support, please come back.
Okay, Councillor Boychuk, thoughts?
Yeah, if we have a private industry wanting to do something in town, I think we should let them do that. And, look at through our strategic plan where we want to go with that, but not just divert all of a sudden away from our plan or anything like that. We just stick to that. And if you think down the road, we think it's a good idea, let's look into it and see what it's going to cost. But right now, our admin's saying they don't have a heck of a lot of time to look at this, so.
Okay, so could we put it to the future that, just words here, that admin be directed to bring forth, a briefing note on, digital signage and or digital signage partnerships for a future budget discussion. Would that do anything?
If I may, your worship, if you want us to do that, because I've pretty much outlined a briefing note here, then I am gonna come forward and say somebody has to take something off their plate to even explore the multiple options. What I'd like to respectfully suggest is council just appreciates that capacity and accepts that, knowing that at some point in time, we are gonna explore digital signage. And we would be happy to write a letter back to Mr. Press saying, thank you for presenting and bringing this great idea forward, but at such time, our capacity and our strategic priorities this doesn't fit into that objectives at this time.
I think that works. So I'd like to put that into a motion. Might have to repeat it.
I'll make a motion or something.
Okay, this is gonna wordsmith something.
Just a question for admin while Kayla's kind of typing away, was it Mr. Paris's choice to bring it to, like, cause I know it was mentioned, yeah, check in with admin on this. Was he directed to present to council by admin, or is that just like he felt that this was so, I mean,
No,
yeah, so on one hand, it is. We're broadcasting live, if you come here and lay all that out, that's part of it, I guess. I just wanted to clear that out, that it wasn't like admin saying, oh, come tell everybody your idea.
no, I understand that.
Okay, because it wasn't actually clear to me, I wasn't sure if he was pointed to come to us again in this venue by admin, or that was just kind of his own choice, yeah, so.
Okay, Ms. Parsons, do you have some wording for a possible motion?
I think we.
You might need the mic.
That council accept the briefing note regarding electronic signs and advertising proposal for information and ask administration to write a letter to Mr. Paris thanking him for his proposal, but noting that this development is not within council's and administration's working priorities at this time.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, does that your motion?
Could we add something to that?
Maybe, maybe not.
Could we
Yeah.
add that he is welcome to pursue it on his own?
He would do that anyhow, would he not?
I don't.
Well, like, we don't have
It's
to give him
almost- If
permission.
he thinks this is town land, we're essentially closing the door.
Mr. Fisher, comment?
Your worship, I don't think it's mine. Mine is better. Okay, I'm just gonna show. So, your worship, I think we need to clarify, it's not our land to lease, it would be provincial highways land. They would be in charge of it, they own that section, particularly the sections that Jamie had identified where he wanted signs. You would still require a development permit to construct the signs, and that would have to come through administration, and we would look at it through our bylaw lens. For that, there's a whole section on signs, and as long as they comply with the signage section of our bylaw.
So we're, okay, Mr. Carr?
Good.
Yeah, okay, Ms. Parsons, could you read the motion once again, please?
Accept the briefing note regarding electronic signs and advertising proposal for information and ask administration to write a letter to Mr. Paris thanking him for his proposal, but noting that this development is not within council's and administration's working priorities at this time.
Okay, everybody's good with the motion, clear with the motion? All those in favor of the motion? Okay, it is carried. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Okay, next up, we have the regional nuclear power plant discussions update with Ms. Miller.
Thank you, worship. So, yeah, this is just a briefing to provide an update on the discussions that were had around the regional nuclear power plant possibilities. So at the April 22nd regular council meeting, council made motion that expressed their willingness to be a nuclear host region, to form a subcommittee of regional mayor, reef, CAOs, to continue engaging on the discussion and for advocacy, and to move the project forward, or any potential projects, and to develop a regional communication strategy. So that week, all of the councils other than the MD of Peace passed similar motions or the same motions, and they are outlined there for you. MD of Peace did get delayed 1 week because of the fire, but they have, the CAO has informed that they did pass similar motions in a special meeting last week, and they will be sent forward to us.
Thank you. Further to that, to the 5 mayors, reeves are having a meeting this week, basically to clarify how the little committee might work, and then report back to councils as to what that discussion is. So at that point, other than that, I don't know anything further. Councilors, any questions, thoughts? Accepting for information, maybe? Councilor Good?
I'll move the council accept the briefing note regarding the regional nuclear power plant discussions, update for information.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? It is carried. Thank you. Next up, Bill 20. As you may have been aware, Municipal Affairs has brought forward an amendment to the MGA, which has some interesting things in it. One of which is the ability for cabinet to remove a councillor. Another one, the ability for cabinet to require municipality to amend or repeal a bylaw. And another one, the establishment of municipal political parties in Edmonton and Calgary for the 2025 municipal elections. So the Alberta Municipalities Association has done some analysis of this. Both AM and RMA have spoken against the idea of political parties at municipal level. There has been talk with respect to the removing of the councillor, and I believe the minister has perhaps adjusted some of his comments with respect to that one. But as I understand it, it is the bill as it is right now, and Alberta Munis is hosting a webinar for members to discuss advocacy efforts this coming Wednesday, 12:30 to 1:30. And we can all register for that if we so choose and get the time. Anything further anybody wants to comment on this matter? As councilors, you're in favor of this? or
Some
what
of
do you
his
think?
comments were quite interesting, like, hey, we're doing this, but look, we're not like gonna use it or anything, but you know, last time I watched a guy put a boxing glove, he planned on punching something. You know, so it's kinda,
So anyways, I think there is some clarity coming. Well, I'm hoping there is. Yeah, so we'll see what the actual legislative.
I'd like to see what's going to be coming, because I think there are some good things in the legislation. It's like one of those big buckets, but
Yeah.
one of the things that really struck me as interesting was in their report on it, when the government put up their own report. They said the majority of people were not in favor of councils meeting in secret or having any meetings behind closed doors, which is fine and dandy. Because I kind of can see that. On the other hand, they talk about allowing parties in municipal politics in the city. So now, let's say you have 2 parties in the city. The parties can meet behind closed doors and the candidates can meet behind closed doors. And if 4 of the councillors are members of the party, they can now meet in caucus as a party, because the party, political parties in Canada reserve the right to caucus in private. So you're going to effectively have to allow municipal party members to caucus in private. I just don't see how that contradiction flies. What do you say, holy contradiction, Batman? I have a real difficulty with that, and I have a real difficulty, and I've said this personally before, so I'll say it now. I have a problem with political parties being able to caucus in private, where nobody's held responsible for their words or what they say, or or the policies they develop on a personal level, but I have to be public with everything that I feel. I think there's an inherent contradiction in democracy on those two statements. So I'm wondering how they're going to navigate that. I'll guarantee it, they're not going to.
Okay, well, that will be to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, interesting.
So anyways, I guess this is, basically just brought forward for information, but you are able to register for the, webinar and, speak your views there, I guess, because that's one of the opportunities to advocate for things. Now, the other question though, is there anybody who would say, don't accept these things, I guess is the best way.
Well, it's kind of a little bit of a greasy situation now in that it's still developing. So it's like we could speak out to, okay, this is what you're planning, but you're saying you're changing it. We don't know how you're changing it. Maybe we don't like how it is, maybe we do like how it is. But like you say, it's a big thing. So
Yeah.
we're just against all of it. Well, probably not, but you know, it's sort of funny to go around asking everybody, hey, do you want parties in these, and then have pretty much everybody say no. And then say, well, good news, we're doing it anyway. It's like, well, then why did you ask if that's what you're gonna do anyway?
So things might change betwixt in between.
Yeah.
But Deputy Mayor?
I agree on some level with the big cities being political parties. I'm still struggling with that part, but it has to stop and end there. And there's no way that they can come down the ladder over anything under so many people to try and force political parties on us locally. There's no way I would support that. I could see it. I could almost see it. And I'm still processing things too, but I would like to see that the end copy, the final copy, and see how they explain this and how the rules are going to be around that.
Well, and they say only Edmonton and Calgary, but okay, the next city has 500,000 in it too, so what about them? You know? Yeah. Okay, so maybe someone would move that council accept this verbal report for information. Oh, Councillor Carr so moves. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Okay, my suggestion is, well, okay, councillors, do you want to break now? Or do you want to carry on with the reports, etc.? Carry on, I'm hearing. Okay, carrying on. Okay, so first up then is going to be Mrs. Bell with Community Services Department first quarter, second quarter expectations. Still.
That's as far as it goes. That's fine.
So people in virtual land, are they seeing us? They're seeing us?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just a couple of notes on the report before you council. We have approval by Alberta Health Services on the hot tub design. So the tender documents are being finalized and we anticipate that going up within the month. For construction, this will work out well. Additional demolition that has to be done we are asking for that to be completed during our upcoming shutdown in September. So the alignment will actually work out quite nicely. Condition assessment was completed and I'll bring that document forward. I received the final version of it just late last week. So I'll bring that forward to council for your information. In addition, I wanted to highlight the Taxi Pass program. There's been a slight change. We have not had a response back yet from the hospital in relation to the letter of understanding that was provided to them on the changes to the program and the restrictions around the numbers of passes that would be available for sale, so they have not purchased since December. And to date, our expenses are, we're in a position of, sorry, the overall financial variance on that GL line right now is approximately $3,900. So we're to date looking pretty good for expenses, but I'll provide an update again in the next quarter. If there are any questions.
For the pool assessment, was there anything that really stood out?
Predominantly the significant issue at the facility, and no surprise to us, and I'm glad we waited for this, was the area above the storage room, where over in the north.
Slide entrance area.
Yes, thank you. Just get lost on my directions, northwest corner of the building. There's definitely some concerns there, so we're having to shore up that ceiling and plan for repairs in the future. The slide itself is identified within the report of full replacement, so it's reconfirming our plan forward to replace the entire structure. There were various other items, but that was probably the biggest item of concern from their perspective. And we'll provide you that report, and it'll be an excellent document for our capital planning for the next 10 years. And there was no overall, the rest of the structure in its normal life cycle is doing quite well. So gives us some work to work on, some projects, but the overall structure is looking quite good. If we continue to maintain it well and do the work proposed to be done.
Okay, looking through the report, there's several positions within community services domain that are being advertised. Are we having problems getting people to apply, or is it?
The new parks lead position is new, so that's a new posting. The aquatic coordinator we had posted approximately a year and a half ago, if my memory serves me well. And we had very little uptake on that. We had one individual. So that one I'm not sure. The aquatic world right now is everybody's in the same pool looking for the same folks. Because after COVID, quite a number of people stepped away from those positions, that career. So it's a rebuilding period. So we'll see what we can obtain for that position.
Okay. And I noticed the Visitor Information Center, so I wasn't quite clear here. So the NAR visitor part is Friday through Monday. And the museum part is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Friday, Saturday.
Friday, Saturday as well?
Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, so both of them are open on some of the common groups. Okay, great. And there's summer students being hired for that, more or less. I like the stats at the back of the report. It shows that usage is up in quite a few of the facilities, I thought. And what else did I notice? That's about it for what I had questions about. Anybody else though? Councillor Carter, wait, I'm sorry.
I see, the hospital hasn't purchased any, taxi passes for the last 3 months. Have they stopped that program up there? Cause I heard of somebody being denied a ride or a pass there the other day.
I don't know. We've provided them a letter of understanding based on our policy update and the conversation that we had with council at the time. And the response was they had to review it with their legal. So we haven't heard back from them. But I've also been told that there's been a halt on expenditures in general on all sorts of areas within AHS as part of the significant transition that's being proposed. So I don't know if maybe it's gotten caught in that process. I We don't know. We're not sure.
Any other questions for Mrs. Bell? Well, thank you, and we're looking forward to the next report in the fall. So next up, we have Corporate Services Department, so Mr. Mugford, all sorts of departments again.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't go into too much depth on the fire department, as you had a presentation from Fire Chief prior to this meeting, but the call volume is up. We continue to be very active in terms of getting our staff trained, and the Fire Chief, he attended the legislature on April 22nd to meet with MLAs to bring forward fire service issues from across the province. So he was one of the representatives from our region. So we're happy that he was able to attend that. In terms of bylaw and community police, we're still underway our efforts to recruit for the Director of Protective Services position. Bylaw complaints that are coming in are being fielded by myself and our chief, and recruitment efforts are underway for temporary bylaw officers to provide additional coverage during the summer and early fall months. Within systems administration, over the quarter, we had 415 tickets. The average time to address them was 10 minutes. Continue working on server patching and we're in the process of migrating our phones from server-based to VoIP. It's taking a little bit longer than we initially anticipated, which has delayed the implementation of our new firewall. So we're hoping to have that wrapped up here in Q2, along with a rollout of multi-factor authentication. We've already sent it out to some users to test it, so we're looking at bringing that across the organization. Within financial services, Q1 was focused on significant effort within property taxation, so pursuing arrears. Also, a great deal of work was done on our asset retirement obligation, which formed part of our year-end audit, which, spoiler alert, was completed on time in April. And additionally for Q2, we are looking to bring back or bring forth the utility rates model and complete our tax rate bylaw and have that before council for next week. Within employee services, so we've successfully completed, in Q1, we successfully completed our T4 processing, balancing both LAPP and Apex pensions, and they supported the year-end audit as well. Also updates to our general safety directive and claims management and return to work program was being developed. Also, we included in our report, and this is new for this report, at least since I've been here, is some stats data from our health and safety software. So we've been kind of going backwards in time in 2023 and including additional data because we implemented this software in midpoint of last year. But it shows some of the incidents, and we track if it's property damage, if it's a near miss, if there's injuries. So we thought that some of this information might be of interest to council. Also, I'll point out that this report did not include the variance report. We're looking to bring that back to council shortly. We just didn't have time to get that out with the push to get the year audit completed. That concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you. So people would probably receive their tax notices after next week's discussion of the bylaw.
So the plan is to bring the tax rate bylaw to council for the 3 readings on Monday. So we can look at get them mailed out subsequent to that before the end of the month.
Okay. Councilors? Councilor Wojcik?
What does a temporary bylaw officer look like?
All dark and danceable.
The intention for the bylaw officers were to work between May and September, and the bylaw officers were to go for weed notices, unsightly grass, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's more like what they're, who would we be hiring? Where would we get them? And
Well, we're working on that at the moment. Typically, we would advertise, you know, ideally a bylaw officer is like, criminal justice student or something like that, because it's only summer coverage and they're putting to practice what they, you know, are taking in school, but we're gonna advertise, but we have some other options we're also exploring.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mumford. Next, Mr. Fisher with engineering and infrastructure.
Yeah, so, gonna shout again, sorry. So I think going into Q1, my primary focus is, I think, coming into the year, I think I was pretty clear on it, was getting my house in order. Going into the Q1, there were 8 positions that needed to be filled externally, 1 retirement and 7 open positions. So HR things has been the bulk of my year to date. Filling those positions, posting, reworking job descriptions. So in addition to bringing in a couple of external hires into the department, we've also moved some internal people up into roles to fill those. And as we move through, we'll be opening up some more external labor and machine operator postings the next couple of months here. So that was a big part of the beginning part of my year. Second part was making sure our capital projects were ready to go for tender. So working with participants to finish our design for the overlay stuff, get them posted for tender, work on the trail design for the new constructed trail up near Shasbury Trail. We're working on design for our trail maintenance stuff right now and clarifying what those construction documents will look so we can post them. I'm missing one of the things that I tendered, I believe. Our development permit office has been kind of, or building permits, we've got about $1 million worth of building permits that have been issued in Q1, which is good, I think. Our cemetery was pretty busy this year. We had 14 burials in the first quarter. That's basically more than one a week. It's not really a great thing, but it's a service we offer. Moving into the second quarter, we'll be awarding some of those contracts that were tendered. Getting construction contracts started a lot earlier than we did last year. Our NIR contractor has already started on 5th Street. Our overlay contractor with their carryover work is mobilized this week. They'll actually be starting work on those miscellaneous patches that didn't get done last year. So we've done a bunch of that. In our public works department, we had, it didn't feel like a lot, but there were a couple of really heavy weeks where we had 3 breaks in 1 week was one that comes to mind. That was kind of one of our activities, making sure that all the roads were sanded and cleared. We did some sewer flushing in January, February to support our capital works program, basically flush out some of the storm sewers so we could look at it, make sure that they were cleaned up and ready to go, or identify if we needed to do any major repairs. Going into the second quarter, sweeping, hydrant flushing are really big priorities. We'd like to get our hydrants flushed and inspected before we end up in any kind of water restrictions again. And we're working on a sewer flushing program for Dalton areas. We did some down here recently and continuing that program for the next couple months. Towards the end of the month, we'll start turning off water bleeders around the community. There's still frost in the ground in places, so I'm not gonna turn them off yet, but it is something that will start soon. Christmas decorations and banners, taking them down. Q2 here, we're gonna be organizing the services to help get baskets up and everything on Main Street. All of our water and wastewater reporting, like annual reporting, is due in January, February, so all of those were submitted. Primarily, business as usual in that department. We have some small capital projects, for booster pump house, and some animal bed replacements. We'll be planning and finishing those in Q2, maybe early Q3. That's the big stuff, I think.
That's all. So, with respect to, drought mitigation strategies, can you just fill that out a little bit about what that means and what we'll be doing?
Yeah, so, aside from like going out into the community, sharing that we've got the bylaw, really monitoring it. One thing that we're working on at the water plant is coming up with a contingency in case we have to pump water from the river into our pump house or water treatment plant. So we're just kind of working through some of the logistics. How would we get a pump down there? How are we gonna make sure it stays operational? What do we need for spill containment? And then we'll be ordering those materials and making sure that they're.
Councilors, any questions for Mr. Fisher? We're also having curbside recycling or pickup happening later this month, I think, right?
Yeah, the week of the 27th, the week of the
The
27th.
last week of the month?
Yeah, and then the week before is sort of our put and take that was asked for. So put it out. Community garage sale / free cycle, and then pick it up the week after.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a little unclear, well, when I read it, because it says only put it out at 7 AM or something the day before, if I've got the right one here. Leave it out when until it gets picked up sort of thing. But then it mentions this part too, which is kind of, okay.
I think for clarity, it needs to be out by 7 AM in order for us to pick it up. Like, we're not really wanting to have somebody go out and take something out at noon, middle of the week, and say, oh, nobody came and picked it up.
Okay, but people can put stuff out in their proper little location a week before is kind of what you're saying?
The weekend before.
The weekend before, okay.
My
gotcha.
apologies.
No, thank you. Good, okay, Counselor Good.
So, I didn't see it. I saw a thing about the cleanup, the fall cleanup. I did see that. I didn't see anything on the put and take.
We missed it in the first round of communications, so it's.
It's going on now? Great, because I think that is something, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, well, thank you for that, Mr. Fisher. And now we're on to the Mighty Peace Tourist Association's many reports here, including their financial statements.
Yeah, so I went to this meeting when Deputy Mayor was away.
Okay.
It's well. Yeah, there's a lot of members there. Boy, oh boy. So they had their elections for some positions and that kind of thing on their executive side of it. So those all got taken care of. They have in the last couple of years done more development to websites and communication and all these other kinds of things than ever. I think it's been a very, very, very active organization in terms of their communication. Lots of increase in their social media presence and following and clicks and interactions and that kind of thing, and even mention of members like Rendezvous or these other types of organizations that are members of the association that have picked up customers through their work, through the work of the Tourism Association. One thing that kind of stood out to, and maybe, I'm not sure why you're so far away from me right now, but that they did mention was some opportunity in terms of development of campsites. And so Mrs. Bell and I kind of raised an eyebrow at one another. Maybe that's an opportunity, given our discussion that we've had earlier today about the in-town area and leasing opportunity as well. So some interesting things came up. the one thing that we really, one of the couple things that we highlighted for the group, because they kind of go around the table, they're like, so what's going on in your area that you want to make the group aware of? So we were sure to mention the river boats and the Rotaract, red plaid days and that, and there was one other thing that you jumped in on later, and I don't remember what it was.
Or wayfinding.
Our wayfinding, yeah, so the signage going up around town, so. That was that meeting.
Great. Deputy Mayor, anything further that you?
No, well, that covered it. I think he attended. I was away.
Okay, any questions of that, report? Okay, next up, we have the, let's see, March 19th, Peace River Aboriginal Interagency Committee meeting minutes, and I attended that. Basically, things are getting organized for the powwow, which is the first weekend of June. And also, a bit of organization around the Sunday's May 5th, missing and murdered, event at the park as well. And that's about it, really. Do you have questions on that? What? Good to go. Okay, the next one was the March 27th draft Community Services Board meeting minutes, Councillor Scannahorn.
If you caught Mrs. Bell's report today, you pretty much got all the highlights. So,
Great.
The grants.
oh, the grants, the FCSS grants did go out. So yeah, a lot of groups looking to support newcomers to Peace River. So that was kind of the big part of the discussion that really didn't come up today, is that we've got a number of groups in town. Vision Learning Center, the Friends of Ukraine, our own FCSS department that are looking to kind of get coordinated on how to best support people coming to Peace River, including from ourselves, supporting people coming through recent refugees in particular, coming to town that don't have access to driver's license. They have to have, the GDL program, they have to go through all that. So providing taxi pass support as well as recreation passes in the town for those that are new to Peace River. So it's a good discussion around that. And we just, yeah, the board was just really happy to see that we are making people new to not only Peace River, of course, but to the country in particular, and landing in Peace River, feel very welcome and at home and have access to all the awesome stuff that our community service department provides town.
Good to hear. Any questions of that report? Okay, perhaps someone would move that council accept reports 9.2 through 9.7 for information. Councillor Boychuk, so moves. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Next up, we have the information section, council communication packages of April 19th and April 26th. April 19th, the incoming correspondence was the invitation to the École Quatre-Vents School dedication and opening. So I attended that. It's a lovely building. If you ever get a chance to get inside it, lots of windows, et cetera, very open and modern sort of thing. Anything further on the communication packages that someone would like to bring forward? Because I have one more. Okay, on the April 26th one, the Society of Local Government Managers of Alberta has sent us a letter. Well, they sent it to Barb Miller, really, but it reads, Kayla Parsons has been successful in her application for designation as a certified local government manager. The CLGM designation is awarded to senior managers in Alberta, recognizing the successful completion of the Society's professional education program, combined with a minimum of 5 years of experience as a senior manager in local government. So congratulations, Ms. And you're well on your way to the career, put it that way. And thank you. Okay, anything further that someone would like to mention on communication packages? Someone move that
Madam
council.
Mayor?
Yes, sorry? Yep.
Just, in light of our previous going over our conflict of interest policy.
Yep.
One of the reports on here, they listed me as counselor as Peace River, but I did tell them that I was not representing the town of Peace River, but they still put me down as that. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that forth. Other than that, then, would someone move that council accept, item 10.1 for information? Deputy Mayor so moves. All those in favor? Okay, key communication items from this meeting. Deputy Mayor?
The CNN lease property.
I would say CNN lease property. Others? Quarterly reports. Curbside cleanup coming forth. Anything else somebody wants to bring in? That might do for now. We've got a meeting next week as well, so we can carry on there. Okay, now we'll take a short 5-minute break and get organized to come back into closed session. So we'll be back at 8:15.
So I don't get that.
Sorry, Ted, this is a GNP meeting, so, you came in after the public part of it, which is at the front of this meeting.